Day 27, Cultivation Log. I perfected 2 forms today, basic knife and basic sword. It feels like the motions finally snapped into their simplest, cleanest version. I celebrated with a feast. Master cried through most of it. Maybe nostalgia, maybe the food. Either way, seeing him so moved was unexpected. Riding that goodwill, I asked Martial Ant for more techniques. After some persuading, and the meal, she handed over 18 weapon manuals. She didn't look convinced. I kept a straight face. Training with junior sister went well. I rotated weapons every few minutes. Unorthodox, but my heightened battle sense let me swap without losing rhythm. New finding. With my current battle intent, I can pull almost the same force from beginner-level forms as I can from completed ones. Huge synergy. Reset results. Phantom footwork, intermediate, movement speed up. Basic weapon techniques. Beginner, 20/100. Beginner, 40/100. Day 28, Cultivation Log. Same rotation drill with junior sister. At lunch, Master looked a bit gloomy, likely hoping for another banquet. If he wants the premium set, he can pay like Martial Ant in techniques. I kept that thought to myself. Reset results were big. All basic weapon techniques, minor success. Mountain Heart Sutra, level 2. Mine, level 2. The mental boost is wild. Cleaner thinking, faster links between ideas. Still just a step, not the summit. Progress. Basic weapon techniques. Beginner, 60 out of 100. Minor success, 0 out of 200. Day 29, Cultivation Log. Quiet day. More weapon cycling. Reset results. Iron body, perfect. Skin, organs, even vessels feel reforged. Durability up across the board. Progress. Basic weapon techniques. Minor success, 40/200. Minor success, 80/200. Day 30, Cultivation Log. Martial Ant missed lunch. I stored her portion before Master could reallocate it. Pretty sure I heard a tongue click. When she returned, I handed it over. She nearly kowtowed. Awkward, but her gratitude is intense. She's helping unlock an ancient physique for me. Keeping her happy helps everyone, including Master. If something's brewing between them, I may have a martial nephew sooner than expected. Reset results. All basic weapon techniques, intermediate. Body refining, 7th layer. Progress. Basic weapon techniques. Minor success, 120/200. Intermediate, 0/300. Day 31, Cultivation Log. Junior sister struggled a bit today. Likely the combo of iron body, perfect, and body 7th layer. She's holding back a lot. If she wants it harder, she can just stop doing that. Reset results. Cooking, 6th grade, keeping it quiet. I'll keep showing 7th grade skill for now. Spirit flame in the thousands. Battle instinct in the tens of thousands. Enlightenment nearing 100. 1 month down. I'd love more days like this. Training with junior sister minus the near-death parts. Progress. Basic weapon techniques. Intermediate, 50/300. Intermediate, 100/300. Day 32, Cultivation Log. Junior sister pushed hard. I had to lean on battle intent to keep pace. Day rhythm held. Train, cook, train, cook, train. Master and Martial Ant seem closer. If that turns into a real match, I'm claiming finder's fee via dowry. My cooking clearly helped. Reset results. Basic weapon techniques, major success. Fast, but I want faster. Progress. Basic weapon techniques. Intermediate, 150/300. Major success, 0/400. Day 33, Cultivation Log. Reset results. Phantom footwork, completion, mobility spiked. Battle instinct hit cap. Mortal, 100/100/100/000. Mortal implies higher tiers exist, but my current realm probably locks them. Slightly frustrating, but this level is more than enough for realistic threats, assuming no billion-year invincible monsters drop by. Day 34, Cultivation Log. Reset brought a stack of gains. Body refining 8th layer and Mountain Heart Sutra level 3. Mine to level 3. The mental jump is the biggest yet. Thoughts snap into place, and patterns link instantly. Spirit Flame hits 6th grade. It looks a shade darker with fewer white sparks, but the power jump is obvious. Progress. Basic weapon techniques. Major success, 150/400. Major success, 300/400. Day 35 Cultivation Log. Master and martial ants say the heaven testing pagoda opens within a week. Junior sisters thrilled. I'm mostly annoyed. I'll lose a training partner. Reset. Basic weapon techniques completion. Abyssal Void Flame EXP reset to 10/40,000. Curious what the next upgrade unlocks. Progress. Basic weapon techniques. Major success 350/400. Completion 0/500. Day 36 Cultivation Log. Survive the jump to high-level enlightenment. Grateful my mind level 3 buffered the flood. The world feels sharper. Colors, patterns, connections. Phantom footwork, great completion. Speed and control are clearly up. Progress. Basic weapon techniques. Completion 50/500. Completion 100/500. Day 37 Cultivation Log. I briefly pressured junior sister. Then she unveiled another layer and steamrolled me. Lesson learned. 10th layer and above is a different league. Encouraging sign. I can contest her 10th layer while at 8th, so I'm not completely punching below realm anymore. Maybe 9th layer puts us even maybe. Reset. Basic weapon techniques, great completion. Cooking 5th grade, keeping this hidden. Still serving 7th grade meals publicly. Progress. Basic weapon techniques. Completion 250/500. Great completion 0/1000. Day 38 Cultivation Log. Master and martial ant aren't hiding it anymore. Sky chases, plate stealing, the works. Good for them. Reset. Body refining 9th layer. Power surge is obvious. Progress. Basic weapon techniques. Great completion 150/1000. Great completion 300/1000. Day 39 Cultivation Log. Heaven testing pagoda confirmed. 2 days. Spar showed the gap with junior sister has narrowed at 9th layer, but she still wins cleanly. If I had spiritual roots, I'd be in chi refining by now. The cap is frustrating. Reset. Phantom footwork, perfection. Weapon forms closing in on perfection. Progress. Basic weapon techniques. Great completion 450/1000. Great completion 900/1000. Day 40 Cultivation Log. Something snapped into place mid-spar. One technique perfected, then another and another. By midnight, all of them hit perfection. Junior sister looked stunned. Honestly, same. System log. Enlightenment. High 30/3000. High 60/3000. Spirit Flame. Abyssal Void. 6th grade. 315/40,000. 6th grade. 630/40,000. Mountain Heart Sutra. Level 3. 2040/3000. Level 4. Mountain Heart Scripture. 9th layer. 90/900. 9th layer. 180/900. Cooking. 5th grade. 35/500. 5th grade. 70/500. Experience points doubled. Applied to all above.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Xiang Yu's eyes scanned the streamlined reset screen, noticing how many of his stats had advanced significantly. Some had even reached their full potential, disappearing completely from the daily reset. As he watched this, he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. The once lengthy list of doubling attributes had condensed, making him feel as though he wasn't fully exploiting his system's potential. He longed for the satisfaction of watching thousands of stats double each day. His attention settled on his mind level, which seemed to have just hit its own bottleneck. Was this limitation due to his current cultivation level, or had the Mountain Heart Sutra simply reached its ceiling? Despite this concern, he took comfort in achieving Mind Level 4, an impressive feat that would likely provide sufficient mental fortitude to withstand future enlightenment breakthroughs, at least for now. The recent doubling of his high enlightenment had occurred without any strain, suggesting his mind had grown robust enough to handle such transformations. Xiang Yu summoned his complete status display. Name: Xiang Yu. Realm: Body, 9th layer. Mind: Level 4. Species: Human. Spiritual root: Null. Enlightenment: High 60/3000. Battle instinct: Mortal 100,000/100,000. Spirit flame: Abyssal void flame. 6th grade, 630/40,000. Professions: Cook. 5th grade, 70/500. Techniques: Mid-grade phantom footwork. Perfect. Low-grade iron body technique. Perfect. Basic knife technique. Perfect. Basic sword technique. Perfect. Basic weapon techniques. Perfect. Scriptures: Mountain Heart Scripture, 9th layer, 180/900. Mountain Heart Sutra, Level 4. System function: Double EXP. Cooldown: 24 hours. Fusion. Satisfaction washed over him as he admired the rows of perfect designations in his technique section. To have advanced this dramatically in just a little over a month exceeded even his own expectations. His enlightenment had ascended to the high level, placing him among the ranks of thousand-year geniuses, though still far behind his junior sister, who qualified as a million-year genius. Despite his impressive progress, one glaring issue remained unchanged: his null spiritual root status. Though he had maintained optimism about his advancement, Xiang Yu recognized the fundamental limitations he faced. If unlimited body refinement were possible without talent, wouldn't immortals with millions of body refining layers be commonplace? He couldn't determine precisely how far his physical cultivation could progress. The system still tracked his advancement through the 9th layer, suggesting he possessed above-average potential. Most cultivators reach their limit at the 9th layer, either breaking through to qi refining if blessed with spiritual roots or abandoning cultivation entirely if not. A soft sigh escaped his lips. Then, drawing his attention to his technique section, he examined the 18 newly mastered techniques alongside his original 2 weapon skills. He decided to postpone worrying about his cultivation ceiling. He would cross that bridge when he got there. For now, his priority was testing the newly unlocked fusion system function he'd been anticipating for so long. Xiang Yu stared intently at the techniques displayed before him as he activated the system function. To begin the merge process, he first selected the fist and spear techniques, but he immediately encountered resistance. The system indicated that the 2 techniques were incompatible. Shock rippled through him. If these 2 couldn't merge, did that mean his dream of creating an invincible technique was impossible? With mounting anxiety, he rapidly tested various combinations, only to discover that only a few pairs out of his 20 techniques showed compatibility. Discouragement had nearly settled in when inspiration struck. He selected the knife technique and paired it with the sword technique, which the system confirmed were compatible. Then, experimentally, he added the spear technique, one that had previously shown incompatibility with the sword. To his astonishment, the system accepted this addition. A smile of realization spread across his face. The techniques didn't all need direct compatibility with each other. They merely required a chain of connection. The sword was compatible with the knife, which in turn was compatible with the spear, creating a linking bridge between otherwise incompatible techniques. Renewed hope surged through him. His ambitious dream technique could still materialize. He just needed to construct the proper chain. Working methodically, he connected the spear to the kicking technique, then linked that to the fist technique, and continued building his sequence. Occasional incompatibilities arose, requiring restructuring, but these proved mere temporary obstacles. Within minutes, he had successfully arranged all 20 weapon techniques into a harmonious chain of connections. His finger hovered over the fusion button, ready to merge his masterpiece, when a daring thought seized him. His gaze drifted to the scriptures section of his status display. Could he possibly? He swallowed nervously. There was no harm in attempting, he reasoned. With tentative movements, he selected the Mountain Heart scripture and added it to his fusion chain. He squeezed his eyes partially shut, bracing for the inevitable rejection notification. After several seconds passed without any negative response, his eyes widened in wonder. The scripture had integrated seamlessly into his technique chain. Emboldened by this success, Xiang Yu reached further. He added the Mountain Heart Sutra to the mix, holding his breath as he awaited the system's verdict. Just like before, the sutra connected without resistance, expanding his fusion chain even further. Turning his attention to his remaining techniques, Xiang Yu added both the mid-grade phantom footwork and the low-grade iron body technique to the growing amalgamation. Once again, the system accepted these additions without protest, incorporating them into the ever-expanding chain of connection. By now, Xiang Yu could barely contain his excitement, practically salivating at the possibilities before him. The fusion would combine 20 weapon techniques, a movement technique, a body enhancement ability, a body refining scripture, and a mind refining scripture. If this didn't result in an invincible war god technique, he would consider himself thoroughly cheated by the system. Drawing a deep breath to steady himself, Xiang Yu extended his finger and gently tapped the fusion button. The moment his fingertip made contact, a blinding light erupted from the interface. He suddenly stumbled to the ground, struggling to get up. He wondered what was happening as he held onto the walls of his house, trying to get up. Suddenly, he felt all the strength leave his body, loosing his grip on the brick wall as he fell onto the cold floor. Xiang Yu felt his body lose all strength as he crawled on the ground, desperately trying to rise but failing. This wasn't the end of his suffering. What came next was even more jarring. A searing pain shot through his entire body, penetrating deep into his bones. The agony was so intense that he drifted in and out of consciousness every few seconds. Yet he kept his lips firmly shut the entire time, though, biting down to ensure no sound escaped. With his level 4 mind, he could analyze the situation despite the overwhelming pain. He recognized that something profound was happening to his body due to the fusion, but he didn't want to alert anyone to his condition. Revealing all his secrets wasn't part of his survival strategy. This excruciating process continued for what felt like hours, though he was barely conscious for most of it. The pain transcended anything he'd ever experienced or imagined possible. His body felt as though it was being torn apart, ravaged by invisible beasts. He experienced the sensation of being skinned alive, his muscles stripped away, his bones removed one by one. This torment persisted for a long time before it finally subsided and he regained full consciousness. He found himself sprawled on the ground, contorted into a position as if someone had tried to fold him like clothing. Noticing it was still night, he realized the ordeal likely hadn't lasted as long as it seemed. He attempted to rise, moving slowly and deliberately, afraid of triggering the pain again. To his surprise, the opposite occurred. His body felt remarkably light. Not only was there no pain, but he sensed his physical condition had somehow improved beyond its previous state. Wondering what had happened, he instantly summoned his system. Name, Xiang Yu. Realm, body, 11th layer, 111th000. Mind, level 4, January 4000. Species, human. Spiritual root, medium grade, omni-element. Physique, transcendent Tao body. Level 1, 1/1, 000,000. Enlightenment, high 60/3000. Battle instinct, mortal 100,000/100,000. Spirit flame, abyssal void flame, 6th grade, 630/40,000. Professions, cook, 5th grade, 70/500. Techniques, scriptures. System function, double EXP, cooldown, 24 hours. Fusion. As Xiang Yu read his stats, His jaw nearly dropped when he noticed his spiritual root was no longer null. He actually had a spiritual root now, and a medium-grade one at that. Medium grade could be considered a 100-year genius. With such a root, he could qualify as an inner disciple in even a top-ranked sect. However, he had never heard of an omni-element root. He only knew of the 5 usual elements. Drawing on knowledge from video games from his previous life, he deduced that omni-element likely meant he could control all elements. This wasn't necessarily advantageous in the cultivation world, where single-element roots were prized for their ease of cultivation. The more elements, the longer cultivation typically took. But to Xiang Yu, it didn't matter which spiritual root he received. With his system, any root would become the best instantly. He was slightly disappointed to see no progress bar beside the spiritual root. It seemed he needed something to help him advance it, even by just a single point, so his system could double from there. Then he noticed another new addition to his status, a physique stat. He possessed something called the transcendent Tao body. He wondered if this was what his martial aunt had been talking about. If so, did that mean obtaining this physique required perfecting and merging techniques? Without the system's fusion function, would he never have acquired it, even after practicing thousands of techniques? The thought was terrifying. He questioned whether his martial aunt knew about this restriction. This physique, if not for someone like him with a system, who else could possibly acquire it? Perhaps only someone with godlike enlightenment who could seamlessly merge techniques. Everyone else might as well give up. The outrageous requirements finally made sense when understanding of the physique flowed into his mind. The transcendent Tao physique was the ultimate body for cultivation. It allowed mastery of all techniques easily and optimized his physical form for cultivation, refining different energy types effortlessly and comprehending all worldly concepts. However, those benefits would come in later stages. At its current level, he merely received a slight boost in enlightenment, enhanced recovery, an optimized body, and the ability to manipulate all elements once he cultivated qi. Looking at the experience required to elevate the technique, he could only sigh, though he acknowledged the current benefits weren't insignificant. He realized his body refining had also broken through during the process, advancing to the 11th layer, but the experience requirement had dramatically increased afterward. This made sense. After the 10th layer, each subsequent level was like breaking through a major realm. Currently, he felt capable of easily overpowering his former self. He even suspected that if he fought Li Yao at her full-body refining capacity, he might not necessarily lose. Such was the power of the transcendent Tao body, even at level 1. He also noticed his mind level, which had previously stopped improving, seemed to have resumed advancement. Since morning hadn't yet arrived, he considered whether to practice as usual, but after careful deliberation, he decided to attempt qi refining instead. Having reached the 9th stage of body refining, his physical form should be able to handle qi, and with his transcendent Tao physique, he could absorb various energies easily without complications, even without a specific qi refining technique. It was finally time for him to become an actual cultivator. Xiang Yu settled into a lotus position. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes and stilled his thoughts. Unlike others who needed to study a qi refining scripture to be able to gather qi, Xiang Yu simply allowed his body to follow its natural instincts. The transcendent Tao physique was a perfect conduit for spiritual energy, allowing him to gather and refine all sorts of energies easily without the need for a scripture. As his breathing slowed to a gentle rhythm, Xiang Yu felt a strange tingling sensation across his skin. The qi around him had begun to respond to his presence. Threads of energy pressed against his skin, seeking entry. Then, without conscious effort on his part, his pores dilated and the qi flowed inward. The feeling was quite foreign to Xiang Yu, but still pleasant nonetheless. The qi was neither hot nor cold, but somehow both at once. It carried a vitality that made every cell in his body vibrate with new life. Each breath drew more energy inside, all of it naturally flowing toward his lower abdomen, his dantian. The pleasure of the experience was unlike anything Xiang Yu had known before. only a few levels below the feeling of his enlightenment increasing. But unlike the feeling of his enlightenment increasing, this feeling was more physical as it occurred on his physical body directly instead of just his mind. Now he understood why cultivators would seclude themselves for decades, lost in the ecstasy of meditation. If ordinary cultivation felt this refreshing, how much more profound must the higher realms be? Time lost meaning as Xiang Yu continued absorbing qi. Minutes stretched into hours, but his awareness remained fixed on the growing reservoir of energy in his dantian. With each passing moment, the sensation intensified, the spiritual energy condensing into a glowing pool within him. Suddenly, he felt resistance. His dantian had reached capacity, a natural limit for a body that had never channeled qi before. Just as panic threatened to break his concentration, something shifted. The gathered qi began to move on its own. Pressure built within his core, uncomfortable but not painful, and then release. The accumulated energy surged outward from his dantian in all directions. Xiang Yu could perceive the qi carving pathways through his body. His meridians that had been dormant since birth finally awakened. Channels opened throughout his body, creating a network for the energy to flow. He felt a transformation occurring within his body, his cells becoming attuned to the spiritual energy now coursing through him. His body hummed with newfound power, and something clicked into place. Xiang Yu's eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the dim light of his chamber. 41 days after his transmigration, he had finally reached the qi gathering realm, officially beginning his cultivation journey. He raised his hand before his face, slowly clenching his fingers into a fist. He could feel qi responding to his will, flowing into his arm and hand. The raw physical strength increase after breaking through to the qi gathering realm wasn't that much, but the realm still had its own benefits. Now he could reinforce his muscles with qi, enhancing his physical abilities. After the initial wave of excitement subsided, Xiang Yu centered himself once more. Since it was still dark outside, he returned to his meditative state. He didn't want to waste time now that he could finally cultivate. Throughout the night, faint wisps of energy could be seen dancing around his motionless form, being endlessly drawn to his body. He stayed in this state until the first rays of dawn pierced through his window. Xiang Yu opened his eyes gently, taking a moment to appreciate the golden light spilling across his chamber. With a deep exhale, he released the last of the tension from his body, feeling more alive than ever before. This is truly addictive, he thought. He really wanted to just sit down and do this for the rest of his life. With his transcendent Tao physique, he no longer needed food to sustain himself. He could theoretically cultivate without interruption. Still, he couldn't just do that. The others would certainly notice if he vanished entirely, and questions would follow which he didn't feel like dealing with at the moment. If he wanted to cultivate all day, he needed to find a good reason for his retreat. Xiang Yu dismissed his scattered thoughts with a shake of his head. Those could wait. What he cared about at the moment was seeing his results. With just a thought, he summoned his system interface, eager to see how his breakthrough had affected his overall status. Name: Xiang Yu. Realm: Body. 11th layer, 111th, 000. Spirit: Qi gathering first layer, 5/100. Mind: Level 4, January 4000. Species: Human. Spiritual root: Medium grade, Omni-element. Physique: Transcendent Tao body. Level 1, 1/1, 00000. Enlightenment: High 60/3000. Battle instinct: Mortal 100, 000/100, 000. Spirit flame: Abyssal void flame. 6th grade, 630/40, 000. Professions: Cook. 5th grade, 70/500. Techniques: Scriptures. System function: Double EXP. Cooldown: 24 hours. Fusion. Xiang Yu noticed that not much had changed from before. The only notable change was the new spirit section that had appeared under his realm category. Seeing how the system created a new section for his qi cultivation, it seemed that it was indeed true that one could still continue their body refining even after advancing to the qi gathering stage. Most cultivators likely abandon body cultivation after developing their qi pathways, either because they reach their physical limits or because the increasingly demanding requirements outweighed the benefits. After all, it was easier to just meditate and gather qi to advance rather than lifting weights just to barely advance in body cultivation. For Xiang Yu, however, such concerns didn't bother him at all. With his transcendent Tao physique, he didn't believe that he'd reached the limit for his body anytime soon. And with his system's exponential growth, even painfully slow progress would eventually yield results. He wouldn't be abandoning either path. As his eyes scanned down the list, Xiang Yu suddenly noticed something he'd ignored before. The techniques and scripture sections were completely empty. Though he understood that it was because of the fusion, it still stung his heart to see the section so empty. Still, it wasn't like they were gone completely. Xiang Yu could still feel their effects. For the Mountain Heart Sutra, he could still continue body refining. For the sutra, his mind level that had hit a bottleneck had actually resumed its advancement. As for the other techniques, he could still feel their mastery within him. He could feel his perfect level mastery of every technique. In fact, it felt even stronger than before. Testing this theory, he reached for an imaginary knife, flowing through a complex series of cuts and parries. The movements felt natural, perfect, as though they'd been engraved into his very essence rather than merely memorized. He concluded that the transcendent Tao physique must have integrated their fundamental principles. He wondered if it had an innate mastery of weapons. Despite this rationalization, Xiang Yu couldn't suppress a twinge of regret. The system's most powerful function was its ability to double accumulated experience, and without techniques or scriptures listed in the interface, he couldn't leverage this advantage. Leaving it like this would be quite a loss. I need new techniques, he decided. His martial aunt had recently given him 18 techniques, so he couldn't request for more so soon. Not without explaining how he'd managed to master the previous batch, which would raise uncomfortable questions about his abnormal learning speed. There was no way this sort of speed could be attributed to just genius-level enlightenment. After pondering several approaches, Xiang Yu settled on a strategy. He would confess to an error in judgment, admitting he'd been overly ambitious in requesting 20 techniques simultaneously. To preserve his reputation, he would claim to have perfected 2 of them, but recognized his folly in attempting to master so many at once. Now, he would explain, he sought deeper knowledge, a few high-level techniques rather than many basic ones. Yes, that should work, he concluded, a smug smile spreading across his face. His martial aunt didn't seem like a petty person and would likely appreciate his apparent humility and willingness to acknowledge mistakes. His self-congratulation was interrupted by a gentle knock at his door. "Senior brother?" Li Yao's familiar voice called from outside. In an instant, Xiang Yu's blood ran cold. He realized that he had made a critical oversight. Now that he had broken through to the qi gathering realm, his spiritual energy would be perceptible to other cultivators. Without concealment techniques, his newfound cultivation base would be instantly exposed. Li Yao, with her extraordinary cultivation, would detect his breakthrough immediately. Before he could formulate a plan, the door swung open with a decisive push, and Li Yao stood framed in the doorway. "Senior brother?" Li Yao's voice filled the room as the door swung open. She stepped inside with a concerned expression. "You didn't answer for so long, so I thought something happened." She offered a quick apologetic bow for entering uninvited, but as her gaze settled on Xiang Yu, her expression shifted. "Senior brother," Xiang Yu's heart rate intensified. Had she detected his breakthrough? His mind raced through possible explanations, excuses, anything to divert her attention from his newly acquired qi. But before he could stammer out a response, Li Yao continued unexpectedly. "Were you practicing that scripture you received from Master?" she asked, her head tilting slightly in curiosity. "What?" Xiang Yu couldn't hide his surprise. Relief washed over him as he realized she hadn't noticed his cultivation breakthrough. He quickly composed himself. Yeah, that's what I was doing, he confirmed. Li Yao studied him for a moment, making him slightly nervous. You should practice it less, she finally said. I heard that mind techniques are very dangerous. Xiang Yu rose from his seated position, offering a reassuring smile. Yes, I'll be more careful next time. He seized the opportunity to change the subject. Why did you come here? Well, the heaven testing pagoda will be opening soon, so I won't be able to practice with you like usual anymore, she explained, a hint of reluctance in her voice. I just came to say goodbye. Xiang Yu nodded slowly. He had nearly forgotten about the heaven testing pagoda. How long will it last? He asked. About a week, Li Yao replied. But don't worry, I'll come back as soon as it's over. She maintained her cheerful expression, though internally she knew this was a lie. Her true plan was to go in search of the rebirth pill immediately after the testing concluded. But he didn't need to know that. Xiang Yu acknowledged her words with another nod. Master and Martial Ant will be the ones overseeing the event, she continued. Master said that you should take care of the pavilion when he's away. Disappointment flickered across Xiang Yu's features. If both Elder Gua and Elder Huang would be absent for a week, his plans to request new techniques would have to wait. He suppressed a sigh, resolving to address that problem later. Junior sister, since you'll be gone for a week, let me pack some meals for you, Xiang Yu offered. Li Yao's eyes immediately sparkled with anticipation when she heard him mention food. As he made his way to the kitchen, Xiang Yu reflected on Li Yao's upcoming challenge. She was the quintessential protagonist archetype in this cultivation world, talented, determined, and destined for greatness. Yet even main characters faced trials and tribulations. The heaven testing pagoda would undoubtedly present challenges, perhaps even dangers. The least he could do was provide her with meals that would aid her recovery if she encountered trouble. In the kitchen, Xiang Yu moved at frightening speeds. Preparing meals for an entire week would have been daunting for most, but his advanced cooking skills made the task manageable. Now, with qi flowing through his meridians, he could finally combine his spiritual energy with his abyssal void flame, accelerating the cooking process and enhancing the quality of his dishes. For the first time, Xiang Yu attempted to create 6th-grade spirit food. To his surprise, even though he had not prepared 6th-grade meals before, his 5th-grade mastery made it seem so effortless, as if he'd done it thousands of times before. As he finished preparing the main meals, an idea struck him. He decided to prepare one additional dish. When he returned to Li Yao, she had already completed her preparations for departure. Junior sister, here are the meals I prepared for you, he said, presenting her with a neatly packaged collection of containers. I recently had a breakthrough in my cooking, so they might be a little different from before. As Li Yao accepted the meals, her eyes widened slightly at the spiritual energy emanating from the food. Even the Empress's soul residing within her salivated at the potent qi infused in each dish. Li Yao quickly composed herself and stored the meals in her spatial pouch. Take this too, Xiang Yu added, extending a small, carefully wrapped package. What's this? She asked curiously. This one is a special dish I made. It has some special properties, he explained. Seeing her eyes light up with excitement as she reached for it, Xiang Yu pulled his hand back slightly. He cleared his throat. This one is not for eating casually. You should only take it when you absolutely have no other choice. Otherwise, you'll have wasted it. Li Yao's expression shifted to surprise, but before she could respond, the Empress's voice echoed in her mind. Your senior brother is right. Though I would really like the essence in that spirit food, you should keep it as a trump card. Who knows, it might even save your life. Li Yao was genuinely shocked by the Empress's assessment. Had her senior brother truly reached such a level of skill? She nodded solemnly and accepted the small wrapped meal. Xiang Yu watched her, wondering if she really understood him. That meal was a 5th-grade creation he had poured all his skill into, teetering on the verge of breaking through to 4th-grade quality. If she didn't use it at precisely the right moment, its potential would be wasted. But he dismissed his concerns. What serious dangers could possibly threaten someone like Li Yao? The two disciples exchanged formal farewells, and Li Yao departed, her slender form rising gracefully into the air as she flew away. Xiang Yu watched until she disappeared from sight before returning to his room. Though disappointed by the delay in acquiring new techniques from Elder Huang, he recognized that cultivation was the best use of his time. Settling back into his meditative position, Xiang Yu closed his eyes and began absorbing qi once more, the energy flowing into his body easily. In the scripture pavilion, Elder Mei Ziyuan's lips curved into a satisfied smile as he gazed out the window. Perfect, he murmured to himself. Everything is falling into place. He had noticed that Elder Huang of the Phoenix Ascension Pavilion and Elder Gua of the Mountain Heart Pavilion had been spending considerable time together at the Mountain Heart Pavilion. After using some of his connections, he had successfully arranged for both elders to oversee the Heaven Testing Pagoda event. With both elders absent for the duration of the event, the Mountain Heart Pavilion would be virtually defenseless, guarded only by that unremarkable senior disciple. Just a trash mortal with no spiritual roots. Any other time, Elder Mei would never have thought of the boy as anything worth considering at all, but this time was different. Even though the disciple did not specifically do it, he was still partially involved in the death of one of his most valuable pawns. He just wouldn't let this grudge go. Now that the boy was alone in the pavilion, he would use this opportunity to eliminate the loose end that had been troubling him. That useless pawn had failed in his mission to deal with Li Yao, and had instead lost his life in the process. But now Elder Mei could rectify that failure and remove both disciples in one coordinated strike. For the senior disciple, he had already selected a trusted subordinate who would infiltrate the Mountain Heart Pavilion, making quick work of the lone disciple. As for Li Yao, he had deployed a different strategy. Several of his most capable subordinates had been instructed to enter the Heaven Testing Pagoda as participants. Their mission was clear: find the girl and ensure she never emerged from the testing grounds. In such a dangerous environment, deaths were not uncommon. Her demise would be attributed to the rigors of the test itself, arousing no suspicion. Elder Mei reached for a delicate porcelain cup and took a measured sip of spirit tea, savoring both its refined taste and the imminent success of his schemes. As long as nothing unexpected occurs, he whispered to the empty room, everything will proceed according to plan. Wang Wei sneakily climbed the Mountain Heart Pavilion, moving carefully so as not to trigger any would-be traps. As he ascended, relief washed over him. The elder of the pavilion truly wasn't present. Initially, he suspected that Elder Mei might be using him to test the pavilion's strength. After climbing for a while, he had confirmed that the elder wasn't present as he couldn't sense his aura. The only one present at the pavilion was just the useless senior disciple who didn't even have spiritual roots. As he walked up, he couldn't help but have thoughts about what he would do to Xiang Yu once he reached the top. Upon reaching the top, Wang Wei's gaze immediately locked onto Xiang Yu's house nearby. He approached it slowly, not making any noise. Observing the house, he couldn't help but think that it was quite ragged for a senior disciple. But what else could one expect from a trash with no spiritual roots? He thought disdainfully. Wang Wei moved more stealthily as he approached the house. He moved toward the window and peered inside, only to freeze in shock. Xiang Yu sat there, staring directly back at him, eyes focused and aware, as if he'd been expecting him all along. After the initial surprise and shock subsided, Wang Wei mentally berated himself for his nervousness. How could this trash with no spiritual roots have anticipated me? He reassured himself. He's probably just staring aimlessly through the window. He couldn't help but feel that the boy was really pitiful, even staring out the window all day like an idiot. Inside, Xiang Yu observed the intruder calmly. After the earlier encounter with his junior sister, he had decided to always have his qi sense extended throughout the surrounding area, creating an invisible detection field around his house. This way, he could avoid any surprises. The moment he sensed someone approaching, he immediately ceased his cultivation. He studied the stranger carefully. From his aura, the man was clearly at the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, powerful enough to qualify as an inner or even core disciple in the sect. As he observed the stranger, He wondered if he was a messenger sent by his master or an intruder. The latter seemed more likely, as he could sense the killing intent radiating from the man. Despite the stranger's attempts to mask it with Xiang Yu's maxed-out battle intent, the man's murderous aura was unmistakable. It practically screamed that he wanted Xiang Yu dead. Xiang Yu remained outwardly calm while his hand secretly reached for his spatial pouch, ready to draw a weapon at the slightest provocation. His muscles tensed in preparation for the inevitable confrontation, while in his mind, he wondered who he had provoked to have such a strong person wanting to kill him. Wang Wei scratched his head and spoke casually. "I was thinking of killing you quietly, but it seems I've been figured out." In the next breath, the walls separating them crumbled violently, sending debris and dust billowing into the air. Wang Wei strode confidently over the rubble, his boots crunching on shattered wood and stone. "Where are you? Hope you didn't get crushed to death, 'cause that would be too boring," he called out, his voice laced with amusement. In the next instant, Wang Wei whipped around instinctively, lifting his sword just in time to block a lightning-fast attack. The impact sent vibrations through his blade and pushed him back several inches. Shock registered on his face as he stared at his trembling arm, then at Xiang Yu standing before him, sword in hand, looking completely unharmed. "Ow!" Wang Wei demanded, his face contorting in disbelief. "How could someone without any cultivation have such strength?" he shouted. Xiang Yu thought that his opponent's reaction was weird. Couldn't he sense his cultivation level? The same thing had occurred with his junior sister earlier. A thought flickered through his mind. Perhaps the system had a cultivation concealing function? If true, that would be an incredible advantage. But there was no time to ponder such possibilities at the moment. Pushing all distractions aside, Xiang Yu tightened his grip on his sword and charged forward to meet his opponent head-on. As Xiang Yu charged forward, in his mind, the initial clash had revealed much about his opponent's capabilities. He guessed that his opponent's body refining was probably not that high, most likely just at the 9th layer. Since his own body refinement had reached the 11th layer, he had the physical advantage. However, he remained cautious, aware that the realm difference between them could not be ignored. Wang Wei's higher cultivation realm meant richer qi enhancement, potentially closing or even surpassing the gap in base physical abilities. Yet Xiang Yu felt no urge to retreat. His confidence stemmed from his perfected iron body technique, which had been integrated into his transcendent Dao physique, multiplying its effectiveness several times over. His master had told him earlier that if he perfected the technique and reached the 9th level of body refinement, he would be able to take a hit from a peak qi gathering cultivator. Now that the technique's effect had been multiplied and he had reached the 11th layer of body refining, he didn't believe that he couldn't handle an early-stage foundation-building cultivator. The combination of his perfect-level techniques absorbed into the transcendent Dao physique created a formidable foundation. Xiang Yu mentally assessed his position. He didn't lose out in strength, speed, or skill. But what made him even more confident was a new effect he had discovered in his battle intent. He could sense that the battle was winnable. He hadn't expected the battle intent stat to have such a feature. This was really useful. He could finally know when to fight and when to run. Wang Wei's eyes widened in panic as he witnessed Xiang Yu's approaching speed. He barely managed to raise his sword in time to block another devastating attack, the impact reverberating through his arms. "You're not trash at all," he stuttered, fear creeping into his voice. "You've been hiding your power all along." Xiang Yu remained silent, pressing his advantage with relentless pursuit. The situation had become more complicated. His opponent now knew his secret. Allowing Wang Wei to escape was not an option. Though Xiang Yu's combat power had reached the foundation establishment stage, he hadn't actually broken through to that realm. This meant that he couldn't fly. It would be really bad if Wang Wei discovered this limitation and decided to exploit it. He needed to maintain enough pressure to prevent Wang Wei from even considering aerial escape. Xiang Yu delivered another sword strike. Wang Wei managed to block it, metal scraping against metal in a shower of sparks. But this was exactly what Xiang Yu had anticipated. Using the momentary proximity, he threw a powerful punch directly at Wang Wei's lower abdomen. The impact knocked the air from his lungs, sending him flying backward until he crashed into the remaining walls of Xiang Yu's partially destroyed house. Moving with lightning speed, Xiang Yu appeared before his opponent could regain his footing. He placed his foot firmly on Wang Wei's chest, exerting pressure that pinned him firmly to the ground. The cracked wooden planks creaked beneath them. "Wait! Don't kill me!" Wang Wei began to beg, his voice thick with desperation. Yet behind his pleading eyes, he was scheming. He hadn't expected Xiang Yu to be hiding such power, but he still had one last resort, a trump card. As he continued his theatrical pleas for mercy, his hand slowly inched toward his pocket. Though it pained him to use such a valuable, life-saving treasure, Wang Wei calculated that the benefits would far outweigh the cost. When he delivered information about Xiang Yu's true power, after supposedly killing him, the rewards would be substantial. The mere thought of the benefits he would receive was exhilarating. As Wang Wei slowly pulled something from his pocket, a triumphant anticipation filled him. Just one more second was all he needed. When his fingers finally grasped the object, his pleading expression transformed completely, morphing into a malicious grin. He stretched his hand towards Xiang Yu. "Ha ha! You really thought I was serious, Dai," he screamed out. But something was terribly wrong. A strange sensation made him pause. His eyes darted to his outstretched arm, only to discover with horror that it only ended at the elbow. Turning his head, he spotted the severed half of his limb several meters away. The cut was so clean and precise, he didn't even realize when it happened. When he realized what had happened, his face contorted in excruciating pain as he started to scream. Before the sound could fully escape, Xiang Yu swiftly pressed his sword against Wang Wei's lips, then forced the blade into his mouth. "Quiet! Are you trying to announce to everyone?" Xiang Yu hissed in a low but threatening voice. With the cold steel pressing against his tongue, Wang Wei could only swallow his cries, tears welling in his eyes as the pain continued to pulse through him. Xiang Yu had been watching his opponent's every move carefully. He had already noticed him trying to retrieve something from his pocket. There was no way he would allow him to turn the situation around. When he noticed that he had calmed down, he removed the sword from Wang Wei's mouth and flipped him over, pressing his face against the ground. Taking Wang Wei's remaining arm, Xiang Yu twisted it behind his back and pinned it in place with his knee. The position was excruciating, ensuring Wang Wei couldn't attempt any further tricks. Face down in the dirt, each breath Wang Wei took kicked up small clouds of dust. The tears streaming from his eyes mixed with the earth, creating muddy tracks down his cheeks. Xiang Yu placed his sword next to Wang Wei's head, the proximity causing him to instantly stop squirming. "I'm going to ask a few questions," Xiang Yu stated matter-of-factly. He moved his sword closer to Wang Wei's exposed throat, the edge just grazing the skin. "The questions are optional, so you don't have to answer." Wang Wei cursed inwardly at the transparent threat. Who would believe that? He thought bitterly, but he dared not voice his thoughts aloud, fearing he might indeed lose his head. "First question, who sent you?" Xiang Yu asked directly. Despite his precarious position, Wang Wei managed a defiant smirk. Do you think that just a few threats will make me speak?" Xiang Yu regarded him silently for a moment before nodding. "I guess that's true." Without hesitation, he swung his sword, ready to end the man's life in one clean strike. Only when the blade was mere inches from his neck did Wang Wei's resolve crumble. "Wait, stop. I'll answer," he shouted, panic evident in his voice. "You should have just said that sooner," Xiang Yu replied calmly, halting his attack. Wang Wei thought to himself that this guy was really a madman. He didn't even attempt to extract information through other means. He had simply decided to kill him outright. "I was sent by Mei Ziyuan," he confessed, his voice trembling. Xiang Yu processed this information, searching through his memories. The name belonged to the elder of the scripture pavilion. He wondered what he could have possibly done to offend such a powerful figure. "Why does he want to kill me?" he asked. "Because you and your junior sister killed one of his pawns," Wang Wei responded, his voice weak from pain and fear. Xiang Yu frowned, trying to recall. "You mean Guhan Ming?" he asked, putting the pieces together. Yes, Wang Wei confirmed hastily. "What do you mean by pawn?" Xiang Yu pushed further, sensing there was more to this story. Wang Wei hesitated, clearly weighing his options. Only when Xiang Yu pressed his sword closer to his throat, breaking the skin just enough to draw a thin line of blood, did he begin to speak. Wu-wooming. But before he could finish the name, dark veins suddenly appeared on his forehead, spreading rapidly across his face like a sinister web. His eyes widened in terror as he realized what was happening. "No! No!" he screamed, a sound filled with genuine horror. Recognizing what was happening, Xiang Yu instantly backed away, putting several meters between them in a blur of movement. In the next second, Wang Wei's body exploded violently, the force tearing him apart and leaving nothing but scattered remains and a dark stain on the ground where he had been. Xiang Yu cautiously approached the explosion site, scanning for any remains. Nothing was left, not flesh, not bone, not even a scrap of fabric. He recognized that this was likely a curse designed to prevent information leakage. Though Wang Wei's final message was cut short, Xiang Yu had heard enough. Wuming. The name echoed in his mind as he searched his memories. The Wuming cult was one of the greatest demonic sects in the eastern region, infamous for their ruthless methods. What business did such a powerful organization have in their small sect? And if Wang Wei was working for Elder Mei Ziyuan, did that mean the Elder himself was a demonic sect spy? How many more spies had infiltrated their sect? What should he do with this information? Reporting it presented its own problems. He would need to explain how he discovered this information, which meant revealing his true strength. He wasn't ready to expose himself just yet. He let out a deep sigh as he sheathed his sword and placed it back in his spatial pouch. He decided that he would let the matter be for now. There wasn't much he could do anyway. Something caught his eye amidst the debris. Wang Wei's severed hand remained intact, having been cut off before the curse activated. Xiang Yu walked over and picked it up, noting that the lifeless fingers still clutched a small paper. He could tell that it was a talisman, though he didn't know the specific effect of the talisman. More importantly, he noticed a spatial ring on one of the fingers. His eyes widened slightly at the discovery. Spatial rings were significantly more expensive than spatial pouches and offered greater storage capacity. Since the owner was already dead, Xiang Yu could easily access its contents. Slipping the ring onto his own finger, he mentally connected with it, immediately sensing the storage within. 10 cubic meters of space, far larger than his mere 2 cubic meter spatial pouch. Probing the contents, he found a qi refining scripture, which he promptly set aside. His physique already granted him those abilities naturally. Several other scrolls and books caught his attention, but upon closer inspection, he realized they were mostly demonic techniques. The only truly useful technique he found was a high-grade fire palm manual. As he examined the details of the manual, he couldn't help but feel that the manual was really impressive. Wang Wei must not have mastered it yet. Otherwise, he wouldn't have defeated him that easily. Xiang Yu decided to keep the fire palm technique and the talisman. As for the demonic texts, he summoned his void flame and burned them along with the severed hand. Though not particularly righteous himself, he had no desire to be labeled a devil and hunted for cultivating forbidden techniques. The talisman from Wang Wei's hand remained a mystery. Examining it, Xiang Yu reflected on the importance of secondary professions. His 5th-grade cooking skill, seemingly mundane, was probably 1,000 times more valuable than his qi-gathering cultivation, even when considering his foundation establishment combat prowess. He resolved to study more secondary professions in the future. Such skills might prove invaluable in unexpected situations. Carefully, he placed the talisman in his new spatial ring for later examination. But first, I need a new house. Xiang Yu stood before the remains of what was his house just a few moments ago, surveying the destruction. Now that the immediate danger had passed, he realized just how poor his housing conditions had been. Since arriving in this world, his entire focus had been about gaining power and surviving. Now that he could somewhat protect himself, it seemed appropriate to improve his living situation. It's about time I built a house worthy of my senior brother position, he thought. He summoned his void flame, The flame danced between his fingers before expanding outward. The flames consumed all remains of his previous home, leaving nothing but clean earth in their wake. He extended the cleansing process to encompass an even larger radius, preparing a pristine foundation for his new residence. After clearing the location, Xiang Yu pondered what type of house to construct. Brick would require too much time and effort, so he opted for wood instead. The Mountain Heart Pavilion was surrounded by lush forests, providing abundant materials for his project. He spent several minutes examining the surrounding area, extending his qi sense to locate suitable materials. As he did so, he was startled by how far his perception could reach. In theory, qi sense was a golden core ability, though it was available to others in limited form, only allowing people to detect the area around them. But because he had already unlocked his spiritual C, his qi sense was almost no different from that of an actual golden core cultivator. Xiang Yu recalled how the area in his spiritual sense had been expanding alongside his mind level increases. He wondered if the distance his qi sense could reach was proportional to this. Intrigued by this possibility, he decided to test his limits. He extended his qi sense further and further, feeling it encompass more trees, spreading like an invisible tide across the landscape. To his amazement, his perception soon covered the entire Mountain Heart Pavilion. He sensed he could push even further, but restrained himself. Extending throughout the rest of the sect might alert others and cause unnecessary panic. Still, he was very satisfied with this discovery. However, he knew that he couldn't maintain coverage over the entire pavilion continuously. Once the master and martial ant returned, they might detect his qi sense, which could lead to problems. Though his system seemed to conceal his cultivation level, it might not necessarily hide active techniques. Better to remain inconspicuous until he surpassed them in strength, at which point they wouldn't be able to detect him. Returning to his construction plans, Xiang Yu confirmed bamboo as his material of choice. Not only would it allow for quick assembly, permitting him to return to training sooner, but it would also provide aesthetic appeal and considerable durability. Later, when he gained knowledge of formation making, he could reinforce the structure with protective arrays. Without further delay, he set to work. Cutting bamboo stalks was effortless with his strength, and though transporting them required several trips due to the density of the forest, his enhanced physical capabilities made the labor relatively light. Soon, a substantial pile of building materials stood ready at his construction site. Xiang Yu had initially planned something modest, a bedroom, and perhaps a large hall for indoor training. This would allow him to train privately, since when he trained outdoors, others might see the progress he was making. But as he worked, he suddenly had new ideas. He thought that a kitchen would be useful for preparing specialized foods just for himself. And, considering that he might get new secondary professions in the future, he decided to add some more rooms. By the time he finished, his house had grown considerably. The final structure included a bedroom, kitchen, martial arts hall, pill refining room, artifact refining room, and one expansive chamber dedicated to both formation and talisman making. These were all the secondary professions he could think of. If he acquired more later, he could always build more rooms. When he finished building the new house, the sun was already setting. Stepping back to admire his creation, a proud smile spread across his face. What he had built was no mere house, but nearly an estate. The master and his junior sister would certainly be surprised upon their return. Suddenly remembering the approaching reset, Xiang Yu realized he hadn't yet trained with a new technique he'd acquired from Wang Wei. He hurried into his newly constructed martial arts hall, determined to gain at least a few experience points before reset. Xiang Yu sat cross-legged on the bamboo floor of his new martial arts hall. Unlike the physical techniques he normally practiced that required repetitive swinging of weapons or rigorous body movements, the fire palm technique required a different approach. This was a chi-related technique that involved infusing his palm with fiery energy to deliver devastating attacks. Typically, such elemental techniques required practitioners to possess the corresponding spiritual root. Only those with fire element spiritual roots could naturally manipulate fire chi. However, Xiang Yu's situation was unique. His omni-element spiritual root granted him affinity with all elements, removing this limitation. He closed his eyes and directed his attention inward, sensing the vast ocean of qi circulating through his meridians. Now came the challenging part, transforming this pure energy into the flame element. For most cultivators, their single-element spiritual roots automatically converted absorbed qi into their natural element without conscious effort. Xiang Yu's omni-element root, however, left the qi in its original, unadulterated form. While this gave him higher quality energy, pure and unpolluted by elemental transformation, it also meant he needed to manually convert his qi into specific elements when employing techniques like the fire palm. This additional step would require concentration and practice to master. Hours passed as Xiang Yu remained motionless, his consciousness immersed in the internal landscape of his qi pathways. Gradually, he began to sense the subtle differences in his qi as he attempted to shift its properties toward the fire element. At first, the transformations were fleeting and unstable, but with persistent effort, the changes became more consistent. After nearly 3 hours of meditation, Xiang Yu finally grasped the method. He could now seamlessly transform his pure qi into fire-natured energy. He realized that after a few attempts, it became almost second nature. He made a mental note to practice converting his qi into other elements later to build versatility and prevent future difficulties. With the transformation aspect mastered, Xiang Yu proceeded to the technique itself. He guided the newly converted fire qi along his meridians and concentrated it into his arm. Responding to his will, his arm began to glow with a subtle red hue. The effect wasn't as dramatic as he had anticipated. He had imagined spectacular visual effects like those from movies, but the reality was more subdued, resembling a modest glow stick rather than an inferno. Despite the underwhelming visual display, he was satisfied with the result. He had successfully learned a high-grade technique on his first attempt. Such rapid mastery would be extraordinary for most cultivators, but with his comprehension ability long since reaching the high stage, perhaps it was to be expected. Throughout the night, Xiang Yu continued practicing the fire palm technique, refining his control over the fire qi and increasing the stability of his transformations. The soft red glow illuminated the otherwise dark martial arts hall as he repeatedly channeled and dispersed the energy, each cycle growing smoother than the last, until finally, Xiang Yu sat in his meditative position as the familiar system screen materialized before him. Body refining, 11th layer, 2011s 000, plus 20/11 000. Qi gathering, first layer, 20/100, plus 20/100. Mind, level 4, January 400. Transcendent Tao Body, level 1, 1/1, 000,000. Enlightenment, high 62/3000, plus 2/3000. Spirit Flame, Abyssal Void Flame, 6th grade, 630/40, 000. High grade Fire Palm, Beginner, 10/100, plus 10/100. Cook, 5th grade, 90/500, plus 20/500. Experience points doubled. Cook, 5th grade, 90/500, 5th grade, 180/500. High grade Fire Palm, Beginner, 10/100, Beginner, 20/100. Spirit Flame, Abyssal Void Flame, 6th grade, 630/40, 000, 6th grade, 1260/40, 000. Enlightenment, high 62/3000, high 124/3000. Transcendent Tao Body, level 1, 1/1, 000, 000. Level 1, 2/1, 000, 000. Mind, level 4, January 400, level 4, February 400. Qi gathering, first layer, 20/100, first layer, 40/100. Body refining, 11th layer, 20 000. 11th layer, 40 000. His eyes scanned through the information. The first detail that caught his attention was the 20 points gained in body refining. He had a thoughtful expression as he wondered when he had gained the points. He then realized that he had exerted his body quite a bit when building the house, so it was probably from there. The act of cutting, carrying, and assembling materials had served as a form of body training. The chi gathering progression surprised him even more. He had actually gained 20 whole points. When he practiced before, he hadn't gained that many points. He attributed this unexpected boost to his extensive practice in transforming pure chi into fire element for the new technique. After the system's doubling, his chi gathering now stood at 40 points. If he gained just 10 more points during the day, he would break through to the second layer after the next reset. This rate of progress wasn't bad at all. As for the fire palm technique itself, he had managed to accumulate only 10 points. Despite the modest number, Xiang Yu wasn't disappointed. He had only practiced for a limited time, and it was a high-grade technique that naturally required more effort to master. The doubled points brought it to 20, which was still commendable progress for a single day. His cooking skill had also increased by 20 points, likely due to the meals he had prepared for his junior sister. He had indeed outdone himself with those dishes, even preparing a 5th-grade meal. This observation triggered another realization. He hadn't eaten anything since morning. With his transcendent Tao physique, he didn't need to eat to sustain himself, so he had completely forgotten about food. He suddenly had a bold idea. Now that he was alone on the mountain, he had the perfect opportunity to leverage his 5th-grade cooking skills. Not only could he advance his culinary abilities, but with his spiritual roots, he could also fully absorb the benefits of spiritually enhanced food to accelerate his cultivation. With this in mind, Xiang Yu formulated a structured daily routine. After midnight, he would focus on mind cultivation. From morning until noon, he would dedicate himself to cooking various spiritual foods, using them to enhance his chi practice. The afternoon to midnight would be reserved for technique practice, particularly the new fire palm and other combat skills. This schedule felt perfect, a balanced approach that would maximize the development of all his abilities. For body refining, he determined to wear weighted clothes throughout his daily activities, providing constant resistance training without requiring dedicated time. With his new routine established, Xiang Yu decided to put to practice instantly. It was already past midnight, time to begin cultivating his mind as planned. Xiang Yu quickly settled into his meditative position. His consciousness instantly pulled into his spiritual sea. Upon arrival, he froze in astonishment. The familiar landscape had transformed completely. Before, the area was filled with an endless dark void with a gentle radius of illumination. But now, the area was a vibrant, dynamic expanse filled with flowing colors and dazzling light. Streams of multicolored chi floated through the space. The dark void had given way to this colorful manifestation as his spiritual power grew and refined itself. Time passed without notice as he immersed himself in this practice, until finally, sensing the changing energy in the world outside his body, he slowly opened his eyes. The first rays of dawn were breaking through his window, painting the bamboo walls with soft golden light. It was morning, time to transition to the next phase of his new routine. With the sun rising, Xiang Yu prepared for his cooking and chi cultivation session. Since he had already constructed his own kitchen, he made a quick trip to the common kitchen area, selecting various utensils to stock his personal cooking space. Next came the ingredients. Since his junior sister wasn't around, Xiang Yu ventured into the forest surrounding the Mountain Heart Pavilion to look for prey. He caught a wild boar and also gathered various herbs. As he gathered the herbs, he thought to himself that he should also plant his own herbs just like his master did. They might even be useful when he finally gained the pill refining profession. As he returned from hunting, he encountered a small herd of vicuñas grazing in a clearing. With swift movements, he managed to catch several of the animals alive. These would serve multiple purposes, not just as potential food, but their fine wool could be used to create a proper bed. After days of sleeping on hard floors, the prospect of comfortable rest appealed greatly to him. Back at his bamboo dwelling, Xiang Yu set about preparing the wild boar for cooking. As for the vicuñas, he placed them in a hastily constructed pen behind his house. As he worked, a concerning thought occurred to him. During his hunt, he had noticed a scarcity of wild boars in the forest. It seemed their hunting had begun to affect the local ecosystem. We might run out of food if this continues, he realized. With this in mind, he decided not to cook the vicuñas but keep them instead. Before returning to cooking, Xiang Yu took time to shear the vicuñas. Using his qi to refine the collected wool, he stuffed it into cloth casings and sewed them shut, creating a surprisingly luxurious mattress. He placed this atop the bamboo bed frame he had constructed, testing it with a satisfied smile. The comfort was immediate and welcome. Realizing he had become distracted by the bed-making project, Xiang Yu hurried back to the kitchen. He needed to adhere to his planned routine. He began preparing the wild boar, employing his fifth-grade cooking techniques to infuse the meat with spiritual energy. Though this was his second time preparing fifth-grade meals, it would be his first time actually consuming them himself. When the dishes were finally ready, their aroma filled the kitchen with tantalizing scents. He took his first bite, and a wave of heavenly flavor washed over his palate. But although the taste was remarkable, it paled in comparison to the effects that followed. As he continued eating, he could feel his qi rising steadily within him, the energy accumulating and strengthening with each mouthful. After finishing the meal, Xiang Yu immediately sat in meditative posture. The overwhelming qi circulating inside him needed guidance and refinement. He directed the energy through his meridians, feeling it strengthen and expand his qi pathways. The circulation continued, the energy growing more and more condensed until suddenly, Xiang Yu felt an invisible barrier collapse within him as the surging qi that had started to overwhelm his meridians suddenly calmed, settling peacefully into his dantian. He exhaled deeply, dissipating the excess energy that remained in his system. Feeling the change within him, he quickly checked his system status, confirming that he had indeed broken through to the second layer of the qi gathering realm. Just as he had thought before, it seemed his cooking profession was indeed worth 1,000 times more than his cultivation. Even though it was just a minor realm, breaking through just by eating was really incredible. He couldn't help but feel that he needed to gain more secondary professions. After he was done refining all the leftover energy, Xiang Yu noted that it was nearly noon and decided to transition to technique cultivation in accordance with his new schedule. Maintaining his meditative posture, he began channeling fire qi into his palm. The familiar warm sensation spread through his hand as the energy concentrated, causing a subtle red glow to emanate from his skin. After practicing this basic application for some time, he suddenly had a bold idea. He reached into his spatial ring and retrieved the fire palm technique manual, examining it with a smile. If I understand the fundamental principles correctly, he reasoned, the technique itself isn't inherently tied to fire. Since he had studied a palm technique before, he could tell that the technique, in its roots, was just a palm technique. The elemental aspect was merely one component that could potentially be substituted. If he could use the fire palm as a base template and replace the elemental aspect, he might gain 5 techniques from just one. For most cultivators, such a task would be nearly impossible, requiring extraordinary comprehension abilities and deep understanding of elemental theory. However, with his high-level comprehension combined with the enhancement from his transcendent Dao physique, Xiang Yu believed it was within his capabilities. He began studying the fire palm technique with focus, scrutinizing every detail and annotation. His eyes traced the meridian pathways described in the manual, noting how the qi was directed and transformed. He paid particular attention to sections describing the role of the fire element in the technique's execution, mentally cataloging what aspects would need modification if he substituted a different element. Theory alone wasn't sufficient. Xiang Yu conducted numerous practical experiments, attempting to apply water-nature qi using the same circulation pattern designed for fire. Several attempts failed, some even resulting in minor injuries. Backflows of unstable energy that damaged his meridians, unexpected energy explosions that burned his palm from the inside. Fortunately, his transcendent Tao physique's enhanced recovery capabilities quickly repaired these self-inflicted wounds, allowing him to continue his experiments without significant delay. Hours passed as Xiang Yu alternated between theoretical study and practical application. The sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting his bamboo dwelling with orange and red hues. Just as daylight was fading, a breakthrough occurred. During one attempt, instead of the familiar red glow, his hand emanated a soft blue luminescence. The sensation was different, cool and flowing rather than hot and crackling. He had successfully adapted the technique to channel water qi. Excitement surged through him as he quickly checked his system status. There it was. High-grade water palm. Beginner, 1 out of 100. He had succeeded in extracting a new technique from the original, proving his theory correct. Now that Xiang Yu had successfully created a technique based on a different element, excitement surged through him. After creating the water palm technique, he could now determine which components of the technique were affected by elemental changes and could now swap them out systematically to match the values of the element he was creating a technique for. Now, he possessed a genuine template for elemental palm techniques. Without hesitation, he applied the same principles to the remaining 3 classical elements, filling in the template with precise adjustments for each. One by one, new notifications appeared in his system. High-grade wood palm. Beginner, 1 out of 100. High-grade earth palm. Beginner, 1 out of 100. High-grade metal palm. Beginner, 1/100. He briefly considered creating techniques for mutated elements like wind, ice, and thunder, but recognized his understanding of these elements was insufficient to formulate proper techniques yet. Even so, his achievement was remarkable. He now possessed techniques to practice independently, without relying on his martial ant for more techniques. With multiple techniques now populating his system, Xiang Yu felt a deep satisfaction. The system's potential was no longer being squandered. More importantly, the process of analyzing and modifying the original technique had taught him invaluable lessons about technique construction and elemental theory. Perhaps I should study more techniques, he thought, gazing at his palm. I might eventually create techniques from scratch without needing templates. Such an ability would allow him to make full use of his system's capabilities. Even if his initial creations were mediocre, he could employ the system's merging function to combine them into something truly powerful, just as he planned to do with the 5 elemental palm techniques once they reached perfect level. The prospect of what might result from merging all 5 perfected elemental techniques intrigued him. Would it create a divine-level technique? He wondered. Setting aside these ambitious thoughts for the future, Xiang Yu focused on immediate practice. He systematically worked through each of his new techniques, cycling through the elements one after another. What had initially been challenging, the constant transformation of his qi between different elemental natures, gradually became easier and easier until it was second nature. Throughout the night, his palms pulsed with different colored lights as he activated each element in sequence. Rippling blue water energy, then green wood qi that spiraled like vines, earthy brown light, and finally metallic silver and gray lights. The repeated practice reinforced his control, each cycle becoming more fluid than the last. The hours passed swiftly as Xiang Yu lost himself in perfecting these techniques, refining his control over elemental transformations. Finally, midnight arrived, and the system reset notification appeared. Body refining, 11th layer, 7011s, 000, plus 30/11, 000. Qi gathering, second layer, 50/200, plus 50/200. Mind, level 4, 42/4000, plus 40/4000. Transcendent Tao body, level 1, 5/1, 000, plus 3/1, 000. Enlightenment, high 167/3000, plus 43/3000. Spirit Flame, Abyssal Void Flame, 6th grade, 1265/40,000, plus 5/40,000. High grade Fire Palm, beginner, 20/100. High grade Water, Wood, Earth, Metal Palm, beginner, 10/100, plus 10/100. Cook, 5th grade, 200/500, plus 20/500. Experience points doubled. Cook, 5th grade, 200/500, 5th grade, 400/500. High grade Water, Wood, Earth, Metal Palm, beginner, 10/100, beginner, 20/100. High grade Fire Palm, beginner, 20/100, beginner, 40/100. Spirit Flame, Abyssal Void Flame, 6th grade, 1265/40,000, 6th grade, 2530/40,000. Enlightenment, high 167/3000, high 334/3000. Transcendent Tao Body, level 1, 5/1,000,000, level 1, 10/1,000,000. Mind, level 4, 42/4000, level 4, 84/4000. Qi Gathering, 2nd layer, 50/200, 2nd layer, 100/200. Body Refining, 11th layer, 70/11,000, 11th layer, 140/11,000. Xiang Yu observed the day's advancements with quiet satisfaction. Despite having already broken through to the 2nd layer of Qi Gathering, he was still able to gain 50 new points. He surmised these points came from new techniques he had been training, which required transforming his Qi into different elemental forms. After the system's doubling effect, this brought him to 100 points, meaning that he was guaranteed a breakthrough to the 3rd stage after the next reset. Such speed was remarkable even to him. But what surprised him even more was that his transcendent Tao physique had actually gained 3 points. He hadn't expected to be able to increase the points of this extraordinary physique at all and wondered what had caused it to improve. From what he understood of the transcendent Tao physique, it possessed a feature that allowed him to cultivate all sorts of essences. He reasoned that it had increased because he had transformed his Qi into the 5 elements. He made a mental note to expand his studies to other elements as well. That way, he would be able to further improve his transcendent Tao physique, unlocking more of its boundless potential. Another stat that had increased greatly was his enlightenment, jumping by a whole 40 points. He speculated this was probably because he had created new techniques. To increase his enlightenment even more, it seemed he would need to continue innovating and crafting techniques of his own rather than merely practicing established arts. As for the elemental techniques, he had managed to gain 10 points for each after practicing diligently, and they were now at 20 after the doubling effect. His Spirit Flame appeared to have entered the thousands and was now picking up pace in its development. Speaking of flame, his cooking skill was actually just 100 points away from breaking through to 4th grade. Xiang Yu contemplated how the 5th grade meals were already useful for cultivation and wondered just how much more beneficial the 4th grade ones would be. His mouth watered, not because of the taste, but rather because of the benefits it might bring him. After inspecting all the day's progress, he pulled up his full status panel. Name, Xiang Yu. Realm, Body, 11th layer, 140/11,000. Spirit, Qi Gathering 2nd layer, 100/200. Mind, level 4, 84/4000. Species, Human. Spiritual Root, Medium grade, Omni-element. Physique, Transcendent Tao Body, level 1, 10/1,000,000. Enlightenment, high, 334/3000. Battle Instinct, Mortal, 100,000/100,000. Spirit Flame, Abyssal Void Flame, 6th grade, 2530/40,000. Professions, Cook, 5th grade, 400-500. Techniques: high-grade fire palm. Beginner, 40/100. High-grade water, wood, earth, metal palm. Beginner, 20/100. Scriptures: system function, double EXP, cooldown, 24 hours. Fusion. His eyes lingered on the numbers, checking out each line with a sense of accomplishment. After admiring the numbers for a while, letting the satisfaction of progress wash over him, Xiang Yu finally decided it was time to return to training. According to his carefully planned routine, it was now time for his mind cultivation. He settled into a comfortable meditative posture, his breathing slowing to a measured rhythm. Within moments, his consciousness detached from his physical form, instantly drifting into the vast expanse of his spiritual sea. The following day, Xiang Yu slowly opened his eyes from his meditation as the sun was starting to rise. According to his routine, it was time for qi practice and cooking, so he quickly set out to look for something to cook. He covered the entire pavilion with his qi sense, instantly detecting the location of some wild boars. At the same time, he also noticed some people snooping around the pavilion. Their cultivations were just at the qi gathering stage, so he didn't care about them much. He wondered if they were also subordinates of Elder Mei. It seems they have already noticed that Wang Wei is missing. Still, Xiang Yu just hoped they would continue their snooping and not find trouble with him. Otherwise, he would have to get rid of them too. As he thought of this, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. If the elder found out that his assassin had gone missing, would he send an even stronger one? Or worse, would he come to finish the job off himself? Just the thought alone made him shiver involuntarily. For one to become an elder, they had to have at least core formation realm strength. Xiang Yu didn't want to have such a formidable opponent after him. He hoped the elder would simply ignore him. After all, he was just an insignificant person in the grand scheme of things. The elder shouldn't pay attention to him. With that reassuring thought, he pushed his worries aside and went off to catch the wild boars. This time, he successfully caught 3 wild boars, 2 male and 1 female. He even managed to catch another vicuña, this one male. The ones he had before were both females, so he was glad to have this male one. He finally had a complete family. He first built a quick shed for the boars, placing 1 male and 1 female there. As for the other male, without delay, he got to work, expertly preparing the meat. After the meat was ready, he began cooking it. His hands moved quickly, expertly controlling the spirit flame, as well as infusing qi to prepare the 5th grade dishes. The aroma filled the pavilion, rich and enticing, but Xiang Yu's mind remained focused on cultivation rather than mere enjoyment. Once the meals were ready, he started eating them, pausing every few bites to circulate his qi. The energy from the food flowed through his meridians, strengthening his cultivation base with each circulation. Although the meals are truly delicious, he cared more about the benefits to his cultivation. Outside the heaven-testing pagoda, Li Yao just reached the 50th floor. Someone spoke, excitement evident in their voice. "Her speed is really impressive," another added, unable to hide their admiration. "Do you think she can break the record?" asked a curious onlooker, eyes fixed on the towering pagoda. No way. The record was set by the ancestor, managing to clear the 99th floor. How could it be broken by just anyone? Scoffed the skeptical cultivator. Li Yao isn't just anyone. One seemed offended, folding their arms across their chest. The talks were getting heated as disciples gathered in clusters, debating the young woman's potential. On the side, Elder Mei Yuan clicked his tongue in irritation. What are those guys doing? How hard can it be to get rid of a single girl? As he was thinking of this, a group of 3 disciples approached him, their expressions cautious. "Master," they bowed respectfully, keeping their heads lowered. "Tell me, what did you find?" he asked impatiently. "We didn't see any traces of battle," one said hesitantly. "The only thing different we noticed was that the senior disciple seems to have built a new house." The second one spoke, meeting the elder's gaze briefly before looking away. The elder heard the information and seemed to be contemplating something. He wondered why the senior disciple was building a new house. Was this related to Wang Wei's disappearance? His brow furrowed as he considered the possibilities. The crowd's excitement surged once more. Li Yao has cleared the 50th floor in record time. She's moving on to the 51st floor, someone announced. Do you think she'll be able to keep up the same speed in the upper floors? How could that be? The upper floors are when the real test begins, replied a veteran disciple with confidence. Didn't you say that a few floors ago? Well, that's different. Elder Mei Ziyuan shook his head, dismissing his earlier suspicions. He was probably imagining things. Wang Wei might have just fallen into a trap and gotten himself killed. He had always been so rash. The elder's lips curved into a slight smile. He would just send a more competent person to finish the job this time. Xiang Yu continued circulating his qi. He had to admit that the 5th grade spirit food was really overwhelming, providing so much concentrated qi that it was becoming harder to manage. To be honest, most of the qi was being wasted because his medium-grade spiritual root simply couldn't handle it, but still, it wasn't a loss for him as he could absorb what he could and slowly refine it. After refining all the qi circulating within his body, he could finally relax. He let out a deep exhale as he opened his eyes, releasing remnants of qi that dissipated into the air around him. He looked at the sun and realized that it had just reached noon, meaning it was time to practice his techniques. He didn't waste time and immediately started practicing the 5 elements palm techniques, his palms letting out slight glows as he alternated between the elements. Crimson light flickered from his fire palm, followed by the blue shimmer of water, the earthy brown glow, metallic silver and gray shine, and verdant green of wood. He continued this for some time, his movements growing more fluid with each transition until he suddenly stopped. His qi sense that was covering the entire pavilion detected someone entering. Xiang Yu was instantly on alert. He could sense that the other person was quite strong, probably just as strong as Wang Wei, if not stronger. He wondered what such a powerful cultivator was doing here. Could it be that the elder had sent another person to finish the job after the other one failed? This was really bad. It wasn't that Xiang Yu was afraid of the intruder. From his battle sense, he could tell that he could win. But he was afraid that if this one was also killed, the elder might send an even stronger one. He frantically considered his options. Just as he was thinking of this, the intruder had already flown to his location. The man floated above Xiang Yu, who was still in his meditative posture. Is this the person? The man asked, more to himself. Well, no matter. He raised his sword, which started emitting a soft blue glow that quickly grew violent and crackled like lightning. He then made a downward slash. A burst of energy left from his sword, coming down towards Xiang Yu, who remained in his position, seemingly unaware. The slash landed on his location, and dust and debris rose in a violent cloud. The man observed his work for a moment before slowly descending to the ground. When he landed at the location, confusion crossed his face. Where did he go? He asked as he noticed that there was no one where he had hit. In the next second, he felt an incoming attack from behind. He quickly turned around, blocking the attack. Sparks flew from both swords as they met, but he easily lost out in strength, being thrown several meters back across the ground. He stared at Xiang Yu, who was approaching him with his sword raised. You, he stammered in shock as he tried to rise from the ground. It was you. You're the one who killed Wang Wei. Wang Wei. Was that his name? Xiang Yu spoke coldly. It really was you. The man's eyes widened in realization. He then reached to his pocket, but before he could do anything, Xiang Yu instantly appeared before him. No, you don't. He spoke as he sliced the man's head clean off. Xiang Yu thought to himself that there was no way he would let the man use his trump card. As he observed the man's body lying on the ground, he reflected that he had been really nervous. He hadn't expected the man to actually attack him from the air. He had to wait for him to come to the ground so he could attack. This man didn't seem as overconfident as the other one, as he instantly tried to use his trump card when he realized that he couldn't win. If he had realized that when he was still in the air, he would have flown away and revealed Xiang Yu's secret. He then looked at the body as he wondered what to do now. The elders seemed to have a way of knowing if his subordinates were killed, so he was probably going to send an even stronger opponent. Xiang Yu just sighed deeply. He hoped his master and junior sister would return soon. Otherwise, he didn't know what would happen to him. He then searched the man's body. looking for anything of value. After searching thoroughly, he found a similar talisman like the one he had gotten from Wang Wei, and he kept it. He then found some pills. One of them was a foundation-building pill, and the others were mostly demonic pills which he instantly burned with his void flame, watching as they turned to ash. He also found some martial arts manuals, but they were mostly demonic techniques which he had no interest in cultivating. After getting rid of the demonic techniques, he was left with a single manual, high-grade lightning strike. After inspecting it, it seemed to be a sword technique combined with some footwork that used lightning to deal fast and deadly strikes. It appeared to be the technique the man had used to attack him. Outside the heaven-testing pagoda, Elder Mei Ziyuan's expression suddenly turned sour, squeezing the glass he was holding until it shattered. He was sweating greatly, his face covered in disbelief and fury. How was that possible? The person he had sent had died. It hadn't even been that long since he sent him. How did he fall so fast? He wondered if there really was some sort of protective formation guarding the pavilion that he had overlooked. The other cultivators nearby seemed to notice his strange mood. Their curious glances forced him to straighten himself and calm down, wiping away the cold sweat that had formed on his brow. "Do you think the elder is jealous of Li Yao?" whispered one disciple to another. "Who knows?" came a non-committal reply. "Well, it's understandable. Li Yao has just reached the 80th floor, while none of his disciples have even entered the rankings." The elder heard these whispers, but he didn't say anything. He thought to himself that it seemed he would have to abandon the plan of killing Xiang Yu for now. He didn't want to lose any more of his men. He then suddenly had a smile creep across his face as he observed Li Yao's name rise in the rankings. He thought to himself that it didn't make much difference if he let Xiang Yu live for a few days. After all, once their mission was complete, everyone was going to die anyway. After Xiang Yu got rid of the attacker's body, he got back to training. He also made sure to have his chi sense on the lookout, so he could make a run for it in case someone even more powerful came. Instead of continuing to practice the elemental palm techniques, Xiang Yu first studied the new lightning strike technique. This was because he wanted to see if he could get some insights on the lightning element by practicing the technique. That way, he would be able to create a 6th elemental palm technique to add to his growing collection. Studying the lightning strike technique wasn't that hard. Xiang Yu already had some knowledge of the sword, so it was quite easy to pick up the basic movements and energy pathways. The illustrations in the manual showed precise positions for channeling the lightning energy through the blade, which he followed carefully. He then spent some time circulating his chi, trying to transform his pure chi into the lightning element. Unlike the other elements he had transformed before, the lightning element was really hard to get the hang of. He guessed it was because it was a mutated element, different from the primary 5 elements. When he finally succeeded in the transformation, he felt the violent lightning chi flowing through his chi pathways. The chi was quite unstable and was even hurting him when he tried to channel it, causing him to have to refine it even more. His meridians tingled painfully as the energy coursed through them, like countless needles pricking him from within. After a few more hours of concentrated effort, he finally had the hang of it. He felt the lightning chi flowing softly through his meridians. When it finally spread to his sword, the energy showed its true nature, sparkling and crackling violently along the blade's edge. He was very pleased with the progress. He could finally control the lightning. Still, he felt that it was quite dangerous. If he didn't handle the unstable lightning correctly, it might explode and hurt him from within. This meant that he needed more practice to master it compared to the other techniques. Still, the raw power was really impressive. He could feel that just this single technique could probably deal more damage than all the others combined. He then summoned his system to see if the technique had been registered. High-grade lightning strike. Beginner, 5 out of 100. Seeing as it was registered into the system, he moved on to the fun part. Now that he had learned how to transform his chi into lightning, it was time to create the lightning palm technique. After doing it so many times with the other elements, he was already used to the elemental palm technique template, just replacing a few values. After trying it a few times, he succeeded. He was now able to infuse lightning chi into his palm to attack. as he observed his glowing blue and silver palm that crackled every now and then, sending small arcs of energy between his fingers. He thought to himself that the lightning element was really destructive. He needed more practice to make sure that it didn't hurt him when using. If he managed to completely master the element, it would be quite powerful. High-grade lightning palm. Beginner, 5 out of 100. Xiang Yu continued practicing the elemental palm techniques throughout the night. As for the lightning strike sword technique, Xiang Yu was already quite versed in the sword itself, so the only thing he needed to work on was just the lightning element itself, which he was already working on through the lightning palm technique. He continued his practice until it was finally reset time. Body refining. 11th layer, 180/11, 000, plus 40/11, 000. Chi gathering. 2nd layer, 150/200, plus 50/200. Mind. Level 4, 124/4000, plus 40/4000. Transcendent Tao Body. Level 1, 12/1, 000, plus 2/1, 000. Enlightenment. High, 357/3000, plus 23/3000. Spirit Flame. Abyssal Void Flame. 6th grade, 2535/40, 000, plus 5/40, 000. High-grade Lightning Strike and Palm. Beginner, 10/100, plus 10/100. High-grade Fire Palm. Beginner, 50/100, plus 10/100. High-grade Water, Wood, Earth, Metal Palm. Beginner, 30/100, plus 10/100. Cook, 5th grade, 420 to 500, plus 20/500. Experience points doubled. Cook, 5th grade, 420 to 500, 4th grade, 0 out of 600. High-grade Water, Wood, Earth, Metal Palm. Beginner, 30/100. Beginner, 60/100. High-grade Fire Palm. Beginner, 50 out of 100. Minor success, 0 out of 200. High-grade Lightning Strike and Palm. Beginner, 10/100. Beginner, 20/100. Spirit Flame. Abyssal Void Flame. 6th grade, 2535/40, 000. 6th grade, 5070/40, 000. Enlightenment. High, 357/3000. High, 714/3000. Transcendent Tao Body. Level 1, 12/1, 000, 000. Level 1, 24/1, 000, 000. Mind. Level 4, 124/4000. Level 4, 248/4000. Chi Gathering. 2nd layer, 150/200. 3rd layer, 0/300. Body Refining. 11th layer, 180/11, 000. 11th layer, 360/11, 000. Instantly, Xiang Yu felt the qi in his body rise for a second before settling down. He had broken through to the 3rd stage of qi gathering. He then felt a huge wave of insights flowing into his mind as his cooking broke through to the 4th grade. The knowledge poured directly into his consciousness. Ingredients he didn't know about, different ways to manipulate qi and spirit flame, thousands of recipes for 4th grade spirit foods, as well as hundreds of recipes for special foods with unique cultivation benefits. Each recipe appeared in his mind, complete with preparation methods and the precise qi manipulation required. He was very impressed with the insights he had gained and couldn't wait to try them out in the morning. He then noticed that his transcendent Tao body had actually increased by 2 points. He guessed that it was probably because he had managed to transform his qi into lightning. Although the increase was small, it was quite impressive that such a stat could increase at all. He observed that his enlightenment was almost reaching the thousands, and it wouldn't be long before it broke through to the superior realm. After the high realm was superior, sacred, then divine, following the same grading as techniques. Xiang Yu wondered what realm his junior sister was in. Speaking of improvements, his abyssal void flame had also improved quite a bit, reaching 5,000 points. It wouldn't be long before it broke through to the 5th grade. He couldn't wait to see what improvements it would bring. As for the techniques, they all had improved quite a bit, and the fire palm had even reached the minor success stage. Satisfied with the progress, he summoned his full system screen to admire the comprehensive view of his growth. Name: Xiang Yu. Realm: Body. 11th layer, 360/11, 000. Spirit: Qi gathering 3rd layer, 0/300. Mind: Level 4, 248/4000. Species: Human. Spiritual root: Medium grade, Omni-element. Physique: Transcendent Tao body. Level 1, 24/1, 000. Enlightenment: High, 714/3000. Battle instinct: Mortal 100/100/100. Spirit flame: Abyssal void flame. 6th grade, 5070/40,000. Professions: Cook. 4th grade, 0/600. Techniques: high-grade lightning strike and palm. Beginner, 20/100. High-grade fire palm. Minor success, 0/200. High-grade water, wood, earth, metal palm. Beginner, 60/100. Scriptures: system function, double EXP, cooldown, 24 hours. Fusion. Xiang Yu was very satisfied to see that his system panel wasn't so barren anymore and was filled with techniques, high-level ones no less. The only disappointing thing was his empty scripture section. He wondered how to get more scriptures, but decided to dismiss the thoughts as it was time to cultivate the mind. Li Yao landed gracefully on the opposite side of the chamber, her feet sliding slightly as she regained her balance. The demon, realizing it hadn't hit its target, whirled around with unnatural speed for its size. Its hollow eyes locked onto her. Taking a deep breath, Li Yao calmed her racing heart and stabilized her stance. She shifted into her proper sword form, positioning her feet and blade at the perfect angle. Though the monster was overwhelmingly strong, she reasoned it wasn't impossible to defeat. As she watched the monster approach, she thought to herself that she just needed a chance, just one single opening. As the creature approached, its body underwent a transformation. Thick, writhing tentacles erupted from its back, shooting toward her at blinding speeds. Li Yao lifted her sword in defense, bracing for impact. When the tentacles reached her, they seemed to harden on contact, producing a sharp clanking sound as they struck her blade. Just how hard are these things? She wondered, eyes widening as she dodged one that whistled past, mere inches from her face. The tentacles moved with unnatural coordination, attacking from multiple angles simultaneously. Despite this, Li Yao was still able to deflect them, but she felt that she wouldn't be able to last for long like this as the attacks were becoming more and more unpredictable. Seeing as she was getting surrounded, she jumped high into the air. But the tentacles didn't relent. They followed her trajectory, stretching impossibly as they pursued her through the air like hungry serpents. Li Yao realized that creating distance offered no advantage at all. From her elevated position, she observed the monster watching her from below, its grotesque face tilted upward. She concluded that she had no choice but to confront it directly. When separated, she couldn't inflict any meaningful damage, and the monster was exhausting her with these relentless tentacle attacks. If this pattern continued, she would inevitably lose through sheer attrition. With this in mind, Li Yao infused energy into her sword. The blade responded immediately, beginning to glow with an intense blue light that illuminated the entire chamber. The luminescence continued intensifying until it started sparking and crackling with electric energy, small arcs of lightning dancing along the edge. She then dove straight toward the monster. The creature's tentacles targeted her like homing missiles, but Li Yao plunged directly into their midst. Her electrified blade sang through, severing tentacles with each stroke. The severed appendages fell to the ground, dissolving into dark mist upon impact. her momentum unbroken. Li Yao continued her assault, chopping through the forest of tentacles until she found herself face to face with the monster itself. With one perfect swing, she cut the monster's arm clean off, the electrified blade passing through its dark flesh with surprising ease. Victory was short-lived, however, as the monster used its remaining hand to strike her with devastating force. The blow connected squarely with her torso, sending her flying backward once more. She crashed into the wall with bone-jarring impact, cracks spreading outward from the point of collision. But Li Yao was not finished. She rose quickly, her determination undiminished. She realized that before this moment, she couldn't inflict any significant damage on the creature, but now, when she used her elemental power, she could finally hurt it. "Do you believe me now that you should use your element more?" The Empress finally spoke. Among the mutated elements, the lightning element is the hardest to master, but it's also the strongest, both in raw power and in speed. "If you can master how to use your element properly, you won't lose out to him," she continued. "In battles above the Foundation establishment realm, it's all about the innate element. That demon, for example, is able to give you such a hard time because he has mastered the dark element. Although you don't have the light element that directly opposes it, the lightning element isn't that far off either. It can now be considered that you have the elemental advantage," she spoke with certainty. Li Yao remained focused, her eyes never leaving the monster across the chamber. Through her heightened senses, she observed it attempting to regenerate the arm she had severed. Dark energy swirled around the stump, slowly taking shape. She couldn't allow the monster to regenerate. Without hesitation, she leaped forward once more. Li Yao charged at the monster, applying the lightning element to her movement technique. Electricity crackled around her feet with each step, causing her speed to increase significantly, her form blurring into little more than a streak of blue light as she crossed the chamber. Despite her incredible speed, the demon's cut-off arm was almost completely regrown by the time she reached it, dark energy swirling and solidifying into flesh. She swung her sword at the demon with all her might, but the demon easily caught the attack with its intact arm. Its massive fingers wrapped around the blade, stopping her momentum completely. When Li Yao saw this, her face initially showed a panicked expression, but then her lips curled into a knowing smile. "Caught you," she said. In the next instant, she channeled her lightning chi directly into the blade. The sword that the demon was holding so confidently started glowing and crackling with intense electrical energy. Arcs of lightning danced between the metal and the demon's flesh, causing the creature's expression to shift from confidence to alarm as electricity coursed through its body. Li Yao didn't relent, applying even more force to her sword, feeding it with an increasing amount of her lightning chi. The blue light intensified until it was almost blinding. When the demon finally realized what was happening, it quickly released the sword and stepped back, wisps of dark smoke rising from its damaged hand. Li Yao clicked her tongue in disappointment at the lost opportunity, but charged forward once more. This time, however, the demon was prepared. Its other arm had completely regrown. It used this newly formed limb to launch a punch toward her. Luckily, Li Yao's reflexes were equally impressive. She quickly brought her sword down, infused with lightning, to block the attack. The impact sent shockwaves through the chamber, but she held her ground. She thought to herself that her battle awareness had truly developed from all those practice sessions with her senior brother. But she couldn't waste precious seconds thinking about her senior brother now. This was a matter of life and death. She instantly pushed off the ground and jumped, landing nimbly on the demon's outstretched arm. The demon, though humanoid in shape, was quite enormous compared to her, so Li Yao's relatively small frame was able to run along its limb like a pathway. She sprinted up the massive arm. Reaching the shoulder, she executed a perfect flip, positioning her body so that her head aligned with the demon's. In midair, her hair whipping around her face, she channeled lightning into her sword. She then swung her weapon in a wide arc, aiming directly for the creature's neck. She reasoned that she couldn't keep up with the monster's extraordinary regeneration abilities, so her only option was to decapitate it. She didn't believe that even this abomination could regenerate after losing its head. Her sword glided through the air as it moved toward its target, trailing blue electricity in its wake. But before she could complete her lethal strike, the demon raised its massive arm, using it as a shield to block Li Yao's attack. Her lightning-enhanced blade sank deep into the demon's flesh, cutting halfway through its forearm before losing momentum. Li Yao found herself suspended in midair, now trapped as her sword was wedged firmly in the demon's flesh. The creature didn't waste this golden opportunity. It swung its free fist toward her with devastating force. Caught in this compromising position, she couldn't defend at all and took the punch head-on. The impact was thunderous, sending her flying across the chamber once more. She struggled to rise, her body protesting every movement. This time, she had truly taken enormous damage. Although she had managed to summon protective chi around herself at the last second, the impact was still devastating. Blood dripped from the corner of her mouth as she fought to stand, her legs trembling beneath her. She raised her sword once more. It had been dislodged from the monster's arm when she was thrown. She thought to herself that she might actually die if she didn't give this battle everything she had. She channeled all the remaining chi in her body. This time, she would fight without holding back. All the energy within her flowed into her sword, covering the blade with large amounts of lightning. But she didn't stop there. "Wait, you're not going to—" The Empress tried to intervene. But Li Yao ignored the warning. The lightning spread beyond her weapon, enveloping her entire body in a crackling cocoon of electrical energy. Her hair stood on end, floating around her head like a luminous halo. "That move is dangerous. You still haven't completely mastered it yet." The Empress spoke with genuine concern, but Li Yao continued channeling her power, enhancing both herself and the sword with lightning chi until her entire form flickered and sparkled with raw elemental energy. At this moment, her body was completely engulfed in crackling blue electricity, small arcs jumping between her fingers and across her skin. Her eyes glowed with the same intense light, giving her an otherworldly appearance. She moved with such incredible speed that it appeared as though she was teleporting across the chamber. One instant she stood against the wall, the next she materialized before the demon, swinging her electrified sword in a wide arc. The demon was visibly surprised by her impossible speed. It raised its arms in a desperate defensive posture, but the effort proved futile. Li Yao's lightning-enhanced blade cut through its limbs as effortlessly as a hot knife through butter. The severed arms fell to the ground with a heavy thud, the cut edges smoking and sparking. The demon screamed out for the first time since the battle began, a horrifying sound that reverberated throughout the chamber. It attempted to regenerate its arms, but the stumps were completely covered in persistent lightning where they had been cut, the electricity disrupting and preventing any further regeneration. Li Yao didn't allow it a moment to contemplate a solution. She moved again with that same impossible speed, instantly appearing above the demon's head. With perfect form, she swung her sword in one single, elegant arc. The blade flashed brilliantly, and in the next second, it passed through the demon's body, splitting it perfectly in two from top to bottom. Both halves of the creature fell to the ground, dark energy leaking from the perfect cut like smoke. When Li Yao watched the demon start turning into nothingness, dissolving into particles of dark mist that scattered across the floor, she could finally relax. She let out a long sigh of relief, her shoulders sagging from exhaustion. In that moment of victory, the energy covering her started flashing erratically, flickering for a few seconds before it completely disappeared, leaving her drained and vulnerable. Without the support of her lightning armor, she dropped from her elevated position, falling unceremoniously to the ground. She lay there, breathing heavily, her limbs feeling like lead. She had exhausted all her energy reserves and desperately needed to rest. As she stared at the ceiling, she wondered if that was just the 99th floor, then just how incredibly powerful would the opponent on the 100th floor be? Could she even stand a chance? Xiang Yu sat in a meditative posture, his expression troubled as he struggled to circulate the violent energy flowing through his meridians. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead. Though clearly encountering difficulty, he still persisted with determination, refusing to give up despite the obvious strain. The minutes stretched into hours as he maintained his focus, guiding the rebellious energy through his chi pathways. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of internal struggle, Xiang Yu's tense muscles began to relax. His furrowed brow smoothed gradually, and his clenched jaw loosened. With a deep exhale, he released a significant amount of remnant qi that spread throughout the room in a colorful mist that dissipated shortly after. As he opened his eyes, their usual sharpness dulled by fatigue, Xiang Yu frowned slightly. This wasn't working as he had hoped. Although he could accelerate his cultivation with the help of spirit food, he felt certain there must be a more efficient approach. Just now, he had prepared a 4th-grade spirit meal with meticulous care. Yet after consuming it, he had only managed to absorb a mere 10% of its total medicinal properties. It was the same frustrating pattern as before. When he had eaten 5th-grade food, he had only absorbed 20% of the benefits. Most of the precious energy was simply going to waste. The fundamental problem was clear. His medium-grade spiritual root simply couldn't handle such concentrated power. If this continues, he thought, if I ever manage to create 1st-grade spirit food, wouldn't I be completely incapable of absorbing its benefits? The thought was quite disheartening. He had to find a way to overcome this limitation. The most obvious solution would be to upgrade his spiritual root, but Xiang Yu didn't know of any reliable method to accomplish such a feat previously. He had theorized that consistently consuming high-level food might stimulate his spiritual root enough to trigger a slight advancement. Once even the smallest advancement occurred, his system could handle the rest and help him improve exponentially. But now it seemed that not only was this approach failing to trigger any advancement, but he also suspected that his spiritual root might actually suffer damage if repeatedly overwhelmed by energy it couldn't properly process. The delicate channels might become permanently blocked or distorted, setting back his cultivation permanently. Xiang Yu stared at the floor, deep in contemplation. After several minutes of intense thought, his eyes suddenly brightened with inspiration. With swift movements, he reached toward his spatial ring. From the spatial storage, he retrieved 3 items: a round pill that emitted a faint golden glow, and 2 paper talismans covered in intricate calligraphy. The path forward might lie in secondary professions, he mused, studying the pill carefully. Mostly pill refining. He had kept the foundation-building pill because he had no use for it, at least not at the moment. But now he saw a different purpose for the item. He recalled how he had acquired the cooking profession. After cooking for a few days, the profession had suddenly appeared in his system, complete with levels and capabilities. Could the same principle apply to other professions? The possibility was tantalizing. Xiang Yu decided to test his theory. He would study the pill's composition carefully and attempt to replicate it, learning the fundamentals of pill refining in the process. Additionally, he found some blank papers and carefully cut them to match the shape of the talismans he possessed. He wouldn't limit himself to pill refining alone. Talisman drawing might prove equally valuable. Before embarking on this new path, however, Xiang Yu remembered another pressing matter. His fire palm technique had just broken through to the minor success realm the day before and still had 0 experience points available to double. In order not to waste his system's function, he realized he needed to advance this technique first. He began practicing the palm technique. This time, he practiced just the fire palm technique, deliberately ignoring his other techniques, not wishing to waste precious time on skills that already had experience points to double. He decided that from then on, he would only practice techniques when they had no experience points. Otherwise, he'd just leave it to the system unless he really wanted a technique to reach mastery quickly. That approach would save time for learning professions and other valuable skills. With his current strength, techniques and scriptures might not increase his strength by much. he could only rely on secondary professions to boost his cultivation speed. After just a few minutes of focused practice, Xiang Yu managed to gain 2 points of experience for his fire palm technique. The soft red glow on his palms dimmed slightly until it went off completely. With that out of the way, he turned his attention back to the pill and talismans. Xiang Yu started with the pill, turning it carefully in his palm as he considered his approach. He possessed no formal knowledge about pill refining, only fragmentary bits of information gathered from overheard conversations and stories. Such hearsay could hardly be considered reliable guidance for something as complex as alchemy, but it was all he had to work with. He began by inspecting the pill with meticulous attention. Closing his eyes, he deactivated the qi sense that normally blanketed the entire pavilion, instead concentrating all his sensory ability on this single small object. The pill seemed to magnify in his perception as he focused, allowing him to examine its structure with much detail. For anyone else, such a thorough inspection would have been nearly impossible, but Xiang Yu's uniquely powerful qi sense, when concentrated on such a tiny target, allowed him to perceive details that would remain hidden to most cultivators. As his awareness penetrated the pill structure, he could discern how different properties interacted and fused with one another. The energy pathways twisted and flowed in complex patterns, creating a harmonious whole that was far greater than the sum of its parts. Though he couldn't identify which specific herbs had been used, his knowledge of medicinal ingredients was still too limited. He gradually developed a rough understanding of the formation process itself. The way the energies had been bound together, the layering of effects, the stabilization of volatile elements. These aspects began to make sense to him even without knowing the specific ingredients. With this preliminary understanding, Xiang Yu gathered some herbs he knew possessed medicinal properties. He didn't attempt to recreate the foundation-building pill. Such ambition would be foolish at this stage. Instead, he decided to create his own original concoction using random herbs with medicinal qualities. His goal wasn't to create a functional pill, but rather to practice the formation process he had observed. He reasoned that with enough attempts, he might accumulate sufficient experience for the profession to manifest in his system, just as cooking had done previously. He summoned his spirit fire. With careful concentration, he used the fire to heat the herbs, while simultaneously manipulating his qi to shape them into a pill form. The delicate balance required intense focus. Too much heat would scorch the ingredients, while too little would fail to activate their properties. As he worked, he attempted to refine the medicinal properties of the herbs, encouraging them to blend into the pill structure rather than remaining separate entities. Without an alchemy furnace, he was forced to perform this delicate process by hand, leaving the process vulnerable to atmospheric contamination and energy leakage. Professional alchemists would have considered his method crude and inefficient, but Xiang Yu, lacking any formal training, pushed forward with determination, unaware of these shortcomings. Hours passed as he made attempt after attempt. Each failure taught him something new. How quickly certain herbs burned, how others resisted blending, how his qi needed to flow to maintain the proper structure. Though he achieved no successful pills, his understanding gradually deepened. Eventually, Xiang Yu noticed the light changing around him. Glancing toward the window, he saw the sun hanging low on the horizon, its golden rays stretching across the sky. The day had slipped away while he was absorbed in his practice. Looking down at the floor around him, he observed the scattered remnants of numerous failed attempts, scorched herbs, malformed lumps, and powdery residues that had once been promising ingredients. Despite the evident lack of progress, Xiang Yu felt no discouragement. This was merely the first day of what he knew would be a long journey. As for the depleted herb supply, he wasn't concerned. These were merely low-level medicinal plants that grew abundantly throughout the forest. He could easily gather more, and if they proved insufficient, a mischievous smile crossed his face as he considered another solution. He could always borrow some from the master's personal supply. Surely the master wouldn't be too reluctant to part with a few herbs. After all, Xiang Yu reasoned with amusement. If he ate the meat, Wouldn't the master drink the soup? The three men walked slowly into the 99th floor, their footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. The one who appeared to be the leader of the group couldn't help but think to himself that they were quite fortunate for having chosen this particular strategy. From what he had witnessed, if they had decided to confront Li Yao directly in combat, they would have been the ones lying dead on the cold stone floor. When they had observed the fierce battle between Li Yao and the demon, they were genuinely shocked by her power. He felt that Li Yao possessed golden core cultivation, or at least combat prowess equivalent to that realm. The three brothers, with their mere early core formation realm strength, stood no chance against such a powerful opponent. Had they faced her head-on, even with 1,000 lives, they wouldn't be able to afford it. Eldest brother, as expected of you, to come up with such a plan, one of the brothers spoke, his voice filled with admiration that hadn't been present during their earlier planning. That's right, eldest brother really has great foresight, the other one added with equal reverence. The eldest just looked at them before sighing deeply. These two, their faces changed as quickly as turning pages in a book. Just hours ago, they had vehemently opposed his suggestion to wait and observe, insisting instead on capturing Li Yao directly. If he hadn't convinced them to exercise patience, they truly would have died without even a burial place. At the center of the room, Li Yao struggled desperately to rise from her prone position. She managed only to lift her head to face the incoming opponents. She wondered with growing panic how they had gained entrance to this floor. It shouldn't have been possible for more than one person to occupy a floor at the same time. They're using a concealment treasure to deceive the pagoda. The Empress spoke in her mind, her voice matter-of-fact despite the dire situation. It seems like quite a nice treasure, too. You should take it, she continued, as if discussing the weather rather than a life-or-death predicament. Damn it, how am I supposed to take it? I can barely even stand, Li Yao thought bitterly. Oh, I forgot about that, the Empress replied with surprising casualness. Hey, aren't you too relaxed? I'm about to die. You know, Li Yao spoke aloud, frustration evident in her voice. She thought to herself that these three were all core formation realm cultivators. Under normal circumstances, she would have defeated them easily, but now, emptied of energy and barely conscious. Aren't you forgetting something? The Empress interrupted her gloomy thoughts. Li Yao could only ask weakly. Forgetting what? You tell me. The Empress replied jokingly, clearly enjoying herself. Hey, now is not the time for jokes. Do you really know of a way out? Li Yao asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Fine, I'll tell you. The Empress finally relented. When Li Yao heard the Empress's suggestion, her expression transformed into a knowing smile. Ah, I almost forgot about that. She spoke, her face brightening with renewed hope. Big brother, she's smiling. Do you think we scared her too much? One of the approaching brothers asked, confusion evident in his voice. Well, with that face of yours, which woman wouldn't be scared when they saw you? The other replied with a snicker. You! The insulted brother prepared to retort, but the eldest raised his hand. Calm down. The eldest spoke sharply, causing them to fall silent immediately. Be on your guard. I sense that this girl isn't as simple as she appears. Eldest brother, aren't you being too cautious? One brother questioned. That's right. She has already exhausted all her strength. What can she possibly do? The youngest-looking one added dismissively. The eldest just sighed deeply. These brothers of his truly possessed no sense of self-preservation whatsoever. Still, even he could tell that the girl had genuinely exhausted her strength. Perhaps he was overthinking the situation. When they drew closer to Li Yao, the eldest spoke with menace. Little girl, this is nothing personal. Just blame heaven for making you so talented. He unsheathed his sword with a dramatic flourish, the blade gleaming in the chamber's dim light. Big brother, aren't we going to have fun with her first? The second brother interjected with a lascivious grin, causing the eldest to facepalm in frustration. We have our mission. Don't get distracted, he reprimanded sharply. TCH, I was just saying, the second one muttered, clearly disappointed. The eldest cleared his throat in embarrassment. He had been trying to appear cool and intimidating, but his brother had ruined the moment entirely. Anyway, as I was saying, but before he could finish his sentence, Li Yao suddenly rose from her position with impossible speed. The brothers didn't even register when her sword materialized in her hand. In the next heartbeat, she had pierced directly through the eldest brother's chest, splitting his heart perfectly in two with. "It's nothing personal," Li Yao echoed his earlier words with a cold smile as the brother coughed up blood, his eyes widening in shock as life drained from them. Li Yao pulled her sword free in one fluid motion, swinging it elegantly to remove the blood. Crimson droplets splattered across the stone floor in a macabre pattern. Only now did the remaining two brothers fully register what had just happened. "How is that possible?" The youngest spoke in utter disbelief, his face pale with shock. In the next instant, both brothers were consumed by rage, their faces contorting with fury. "How dare you kill the eldest?" they roared in unison as they charged at Li Yao, weapons drawn and caution abandoned. But Li Yao simply swung her sword in a perfect arc, cutting off both their heads in one fluid, almost casual motion. The precision and speed of her attack made it appear as though she had never been weakened at all. She then swung her blade once more to clear the blood before sheathing it carefully. The sword clicked satisfyingly into place as the two severed heads of the disciples hit the ground with heavy thuds, their expressions forever frozen in shock and rage. Li Yao walked over calmly and collected the spatial rings from the three brothers' fingers. But she had no time to inspect her spoils as something extraordinary was happening within her body. When she had realized she was in mortal danger, she had remembered the gift her senior brother had given her, something he instructed her to use only when she had no other choice. When she had opened the small package earlier, she was surprised to discover it contained what appeared to be a simple cake. Yet this ordinary-looking dessert radiated immense spiritual energy. The moment she placed it in her mouth, she was first struck by its overwhelming sweetness. Then, before she could even swallow, the cake dissipated into pure qi, traveling throughout her body with startling speed. The energy was so potent that her core filled instantly, restoring her strength and allowing her to dispatch the three brothers with ease. But the effects weren't complete. She could feel the energy continuing to build within her, growing at an alarming rate. If she didn't handle this properly, she might actually explode from the overwhelming power. "Quickly, circulate the energy. Don't let any of it go to waste," the Empress shouted urgently in her mind. Li Yao immediately assumed a meditative position and began circulating her energy, desperately struggling to refine the seemingly limitless power flooding into her core. Her body glowed with a faint blue light as she fought to control the surging tide of energy that threatened to tear her apart from within. Outside the heaven-testing pagoda, Elder Meizuan instantly rose from his position, his face contorted with disbelief. "I am possible," he spoke, his voice trembling with rage and confusion. The spiritual connection he maintained with his three subordinates had just been severed completely. This could only mean one thing. They had died. How could this happen? Could they have triggered some trap hidden within the pagodas? But that was impossible. He had told them of all the traps in the pagoda. How could they fall for them? Could it be that the three trained cultivators couldn't overwhelm a single girl? Was Li Yao truly that formidable? His robes billowed around him as he charged towards the heaven-testing pagoda, murderous intent radiating from his body like waves of heat. But before he could reach the entrance, two figures materialized before him, their gleaming swords pointed directly at his chest. "Elder Mei, I don't think this is appropriate." Elder Huang Fengqi's soft voice cut through. Despite her gentle tone, her eyes remained sharp and vigilant. "What do you think you're doing? Are you trying to interfere with the test?" Elder Shantian demanded, his eyebrows furrowed in disapproval and his sword firm. The disciples and spectators gathered around the pagoda turned their attention from the test rankings toward this unexpected confrontation. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Had Elder Mei truly lost his senses because his disciples failed to secure positions in the rankings? Elder Meizuan glanced around nervously, noticing the growing crowd of witnesses. Damn it! Now that things had spiraled to this point, there was only one path forward. "Everyone!" he shouted, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "Change of plans, attack." In the next heartbeat, chaos erupted. Throughout the previously peaceful gathering, concealed figures suddenly drew hidden weapons, faces transforming from passive observers to cold-blooded killers as they began cutting down the unsuspecting spectators around them. "Not good. We're under attack," one person shouted above the sudden screams and clash of weapons. "Ring the bell." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across his workspace, Xiang Yu decided to stop his pill-refining efforts and turned his attention to the 2 talismans and blank paper he had prepared. He picked up a brush, then, just as he had done with the pill, redirected all his qi sense, focusing its full power on analyzing the talismans. What he discovered surprised him. These weren't merely calligraphy marks as he had initially assumed. The visible characters were merely the surface layer. Beneath them ran intricate patterns of pure qi, woven together with remarkable precision. If he had to compare it to something from his former world, the design resembled a computer motherboard, complex pathways of energy connecting in systematic patterns beneath the visible surface. Since both talismans were identical, they contained the same elaborate network of qi channels under the visible writing. Xiang Yu set the brush aside. The calligraphy, he realized, merely served to identify the talisman's purpose. The true functional component was the intricate qi pattern embedded at the center of the paper. Instead of ink, he focused a small amount of qi at his fingertip, directing it toward the blank paper as he attempted to recreate the pattern. The moment his qi made contact with the paper, it tore into pieces. Xiang Yu stared at the shredded remains and sighed deeply. Evidently, he needed far greater concentration to draw such delicate patterns without destroying the medium. He selected another sheet and tried again. Failure. Another attempt. Another failure. Yet another piece of paper. Yet another failure. After multiple unsuccessful attempts, Xiang Yu exhaled slowly to calm his mounting frustration. He took another blank sheet, holding it gently in his hand. Closing his eyes, he intensified his concentration to unprecedented levels. For a brief, promising moment, it seemed he might succeed, until the paper suddenly tore apart like the others. Undeterred, he selected his next piece of paper. As he held it, he closed his eyes and concentrated with even greater intensity. The challenge was clear. He needed to make his qi impossibly gentle. He wondered if cultivators used some kind of specialized tool, something similar to the lithography machines from his previous world, to create these talismans. It seemed almost impossible that raw qi could be controlled with such precision. Perhaps his concentration simply wasn't sufficient. Refusing to surrender, Xiang Yu deepened his focus even further. In his mind, he meticulously visualized the talisman pattern, every twist, every turn, every minute connection. He pictured it with such extraordinary detail that he slipped into a trance-like state where nothing existed except the swirling, interconnected patterns of the talisman design. When he finally emerged from this meditative state, Xiang Yu opened his eyes slowly, carefully, and witnessed something remarkable. The paper in his hand was glowing softly, suffused with qi energy as the pattern he had visualized was etching itself into the material. Not by his conscious direction, but as if guided by the pure intensity of his concentration and the perfect blueprint he had created in his mind. He watched with amazement as the pattern materialized before his eyes. When the initial shock faded, Xiang Yu suddenly realized what was happening and regained his focus. To think it was that simple all along. When using qi normally, it originated primarily from the dantian, a source typically violent and unstable in nature. But during his intense concentration, he had inadvertently drawn upon the qi from his spiritual sea, a gentler, more refined energy that flowed like a calm breeze rather than the usual turbulent force. This revelation explained why cultivating the mind was so crucial for combating mental demons. The serene qi in the spiritual sea could help pacify the turbulent energy coursing through a cultivator's body. When he had burned the pattern's image into his mind, mastering every intricate detail, He had subconsciously replicated it onto the paper using this refined spiritual sea energy. So this is why, he whispered to himself, genuine wonder in his voice. What had seemed impossible now made perfect sense. These delicate patterns could be drawn on such fragile material because cultivators weren't using destructive Dantian Qi, but rather the controlled, gentle energy of the spiritual sea. Did this mean that only those at the golden core stage could craft talismans? After all, only cultivators at that realm could access their spiritual sea. Had he not unlocked his spiritual sea prematurely, would talisman crafting have remained forever beyond his reach? Xiang Yu couldn't help but feel fortunate. The spiritual sea that he didn't know how to use before was slowly starting to show its value. He slowly opened his eyes completely, observing with satisfaction that the pattern had been perfectly replicated on the paper. He had created a talisman entirely on his own. Moreover, after studying the pattern so intensely and successfully replicating it, he now understood its purpose. It seems to be an explosion talisman, but only 9th grade, he thought to himself. Like other professions in the cultivation world, talisman making was also structured from 9th grade, lowest, to 1st grade, highest. He wondered if this achievement qualified him as a 9th grade talisman maker. Eager to confirm, he prepared to summon his system interface to check if the profession had officially manifested. But before he could complete the mental command, a loud, resonant bell sound penetrated his concentration. The sound reverberated through the entire sect. From his predecessor's memories, he instantly recognized the sound as the sect's emergency bell. For that bell to ring with such urgency could only mean one thing. The Azure Cloud sect was under attack. Xiang Yu's mind raced. Was the sect under attack? Had Elder Mei and his accomplices finally decided to make their move? As these thoughts whirled through his mind, Xiang Yu suddenly felt a tingling sensation spreading across his entire body. He instantly recognized this feeling. It was the feeling of his battle awareness activating, automatically shifting him into combat-ready status. But why would this happen? Even if the sect was under attack, there was no immediate threat to him personally unless... Oh no, he gasped as realization struck him. He had been focusing all his spiritual sense on the talismans and pill, completely withdrawing the chi sense that normally blanketed the entire pavilion. He had left himself utterly defenseless, unable to detect anyone approaching. Damn it, I let my guard down, he thought as he quickly spun around, only to be met with an enormous fist hurtling toward his face at frightening speed. The massive knuckles filled his vision, already too close to evade completely. In that split second between recognition and impact, Xiang Yu's enhanced battle instinct screamed warnings through every fiber of his being. He had made the cardinal mistake that he had sworn never to make in this dangerous world. He had become distracted, forgotten his surroundings, and now someone had managed to approach him undetected. Xiang Yu watched the incoming fist with widening eyes. Enemy. He really had let his guard down this time. But his battle instinct didn't let him stay in the trance for long, as he instantly recovered, entering combat-ready status. He moved his hand, placing the talisman he'd just finished making on the opponent's fist before retreating back a few steps. Talisman. In the next second, an explosion erupted, the shock wave pushing Xiang Yu, who was already several steps away, even further back. So powerful, he gasped, surprised by the effect. He hadn't expected a 9th grade talisman to be so potent. No wonder a Foundation Establishment cultivator kept it as a trump card. It made sense since even the lowest grade talisman could only be made by a golden core cultivator. He was really grateful that he had killed Wang Wei and the other assassin before they could employ this trump card. Otherwise, he would have been the one to die. The only problem was that his newly built house had also been caught in the blast. When the explosion dust finally settled, he could finally see the opponent clearly. Enemy *3. To his surprise, there were actually 3 of them, and they didn't seem to be harmed at all, except for the one in the front who appeared to have taken on the full blast. He was a huge man with a muscular stature. His right hand had been blown right off, but he still remained calm. Xiang Yu used his chi sense and was shocked. The two others were actually middle-stage foundation establishment cultivators, while the huge man was an early-stage core formation cultivator. Xiang Yu now understood why the others were unharmed. The man had blocked the explosion for them. Xiang Yu felt truly nervous. Not to mention the core formation cultivator. He didn't even know if he could win against the middle-stage foundation establishment cultivators. Had the heavens really decided to kill him today? Though anxiety churned inside him, he maintained an outwardly calm facade. He needed to come up with a plan. The huge man held his remaining arm, using qi to stabilize the blood flow. I thought that it was a killing formation or a hidden expert. The man spoke, his voice steady despite his injury. Who would have thought that it was just a kid playing around with talismans? As he spoke, he used voice transmission to communicate with the others. Don't let your guard down. I used almost half my strength to take on that attack. He thought to himself that he had been caught off guard since the disciple didn't seem to have any cultivation. To think that the boy would use a talisman at such close proximity, he could only take it head-on. Demonic cultivators, you think I don't know your scheme? Xiang Yu shouted, causing the man to be startled. Could it be that their plan had already been exposed? How could he know that they were demonic cultivators? Today, this elder will teach you a lesson, Xiang Yu declared confidently. In the next second, talismans appeared in his hands. There were almost a dozen of them. When the big man saw this, he panicked. How could this youth have so many talismans? Xiang Yu then threw all of them towards the intruders. Not good. Run, the core formation cultivator shouted, and the three scattered in different directions. The big man perched atop a tree, a few meters away from where he was before. Why isn't the explosion happening? He wondered. He then looked toward where the talismans had been thrown, only to see pieces of paper scattered on the ground. And Xiang Yu, he was gone. That brat, the man shouted. They had been tricked. There weren't any talismans at all. The man dropped from his hiding location, and the others, having also realized the deception, came down as well. Quickly, go capture him, the man commanded. He's just a mortal. There is no way he could have gotten far. In his mind, he thought that he had assumed the disciples seemed to know about their plan, but as it appeared now, the boy was probably just spouting nonsense. Still, they needed to catch him just in case. The foundation establishment subordinates bowed and scattered in different directions. The injured man then got into a meditative posture. He thought to himself that he should recover his energy first. Those two should have no trouble capturing a mortal. Even though Xiang Yu might have a few more talismans, as long as they stayed vigilant, they should be able to avoid being harmed. In the forest, Xiang Yu ran, employing his movement technique to move even faster. He had used his remaining 2 talismans, holding them together with blank papers to give the illusion of having many talismans. He had learned this trick from a street magician he had seen doing card tricks once. He thought to himself that at his current state, there was no way he could contend against the core formation realm cultivator, even an injured one. Escape was his only option. Tree, *12. Since his system could conceal his cultivation, as long as he hid well, he would be able to avoid detection. Unless the core formation cultivator had a chi sense as strong as his that could cover the entire pavilion, there was no way that he could find him. Cave. As he was running, he noticed a cave entrance partially hidden by foliage. He thought to himself that this cave was concealed well enough to serve as a hiding place. He quickly gathered a handful of fallen leaves and branches, slipping inside the small opening and carefully arranging the foliage to make it appear as though it was just a normal bush. Once inside, he pressed himself against the cool stone wall and forced his breathing to slow, calming himself down. Stone. When his heartbeat finally steadied, he could properly assess his situation. He could also finally address the random text that kept appearing before him. He thought he was losing his mind for a moment. With his mind clear, Xiang Yu summoned his system interface and was instantly surprised by what he saw. Professions: Cook, 4th grade, 20 to 600, Talisman Maker, 9th grade, 10 out of 100, Appraiser, 9th grade, 2 out of 100,